The AI data centers in America have already become hugely unpopular. The noise pollution from their cooling systems reach up to 100 decibels and run non-stop. They are drawing down aquifers in areas that are already in short supply, turning the water brown and tainting it with a disinfectant smell. And there is no benefit to the local community. A U.S. Chamber of Commerce report found that each data center provides about 157 jobs. Because of all this, developers have been using non-disclosure agreements with local officials, and projects are announced only weeks before voting for approval. There are now nearly 200 active opposition groups across the United States, and it's growing fast. The official story is that the U.S. needs to stay competitive to beat China in an artificial intelligence arms race. But that story does not add up. The United States has already built over 4,000 data centers. China ranks at number 4 with 368. What they appear to be is the infrastructure for a new financial system, one that includes mass surveillance and autonomous weapon systems to protect it. The US dollar system is quickly collapsing, which would devastate the entire world economy. The only solution being played out is the AI agentic economy, which requires a massive amount of computing power. This new AI agentic system will be run by autonomous software entities that can own wallets, earn and spend money, create contracts, and transact with each other without human intermediaries. This addresses the debt problem by growing the economy faster than the debt accumulates. Like the petrodollar, it extends US dollar hegemony without fixing its core issue, the debt. The Bank for International Settlements is the bank for central banks. It is immune from any national law, and its employees have diplomatic immunity. It answers to no government on earth, and every central bank is a member. BRICS only appears to be in opposition to Western banking. It is not. BRICS is aligned with the rest of the world in adopting this new AI digital banking system. But a growing number of analysts agree that this is a temporary fix. After about 10 years, the consumption of resources, the displacement of human workers, and the massive transfer of wealth to the few who own these AI agents makes a fundamental restructuring unavoidable. And yet, the entire world is going along with this plan. The question is, why? As we covered in last week's video, the New World Order, the emerging unipolar world is preparing for a major geological event that is expected to be catastrophic for the United States and beneficial to Russia. In the United States, data centers are being built inland and on elevated land, away from the coastlines. This is where all vital U.S. infrastructure is being moved, and is where billionaires are buying up acres by the millions. China is building their data centers inland and high above sea level, over 1,200 kilometers from their main user bases, who have been complaining about latency and security. China has also built ready-to-occupy ghost cities at high elevation, deep inland, and on geologically stable platforms. And they are now using economic incentives to move its population into these cities and away from the coast. Russia's official government plan explicitly states the opening up of new land for agriculture and easier transportation of goods in the Arctic as positive effects of an expected pole shift. They are spending billions preparing for it. They have passed dozens of new laws aimed at stimulating economic growth and encouraging migration to the Arctic, including free land grants, subsidized mortgages, and other social benefits for those who make the move. Russian scientists have concluded that 13 million square kilometers of currently frozen territory will soon thaw and become the center of Russian civilization and a land of great opportunity. Russia is not frantically building data centers. They are passing homesteading laws and preparing for a windfall of new landmass. The expected catastrophic geological event is the most elegant explanation for all the chaos happening on Earth today. It explains just about everything. The real mystery is this: what exactly is causing it, and how do the most powerful people on Earth know about it? Greg Reese reporting.
In a brazen power grab ripped straight from the globalist authoritarian handbook, President Trump's National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, or NSPM 7, has just redefined core American beliefs as indicators of domestic terrorism. This thing unleashes the FBI's sprawling joint terrorism task forces to sniff out and preemptively dismantle networks before a single crime is committed. Stephen Miller called it the first real all-of-government push against left-wing terror. But as Ken Klippenstein laid bare, the language is so broad it devours everything in its path, bypassing Congress through the same old federal-local fusion centers that have been grinding away at liberty for decades. And in the last few days, Trump's counterterrorism point man, Sebastian Gorka, made it crystal clear this blade cuts both ways.
Let's come back to right-wing extremism. Do you regard it as a threat at all, or anything that's important to be considering right now? Because the SPLC revelations, I feel like we just got the tip of the iceberg. We don't really know how deep it goes. I mean, is there any? I guess that's the question. I'm assuming there's a little bit, because it's a big country. There's a little bit of everything. But is there really anything?
We have to have an effective, accurate snapshot on who are part of the conservative movement today. Because I would say to you, I'm not sure that Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson are conservatives. If you are lauding a Sharia law, if you are saying that there are Muslim states that seem to be better qualitatively than America in terms of freedom and prosperity, I'm not sure that means you're part of the conservative movement. So if you remove those individuals and you understand that they're not conservatives, what's left? Who are the people in the mainstream of the conservative movement, Alex, who are saying violence is okay? Hard to find people who aren't fringe figures.
So I don't talk a lot about Fuentes on the show because I always knew that there was something up about it. It was very obvious to me, and I just didn't know how much. It's always tough when you've got a big newsroom like Breitbart, because I've got two options. I've got ignore it, knowing this thing is eventually going to go away, or direct a bunch of fire at it. And we did a couple of pieces on him over the years that have been negative, obviously. But I spent a lot of time on it because it felt very inorganic to me. Certainly the numbers that were reported around this guy, that he was commanding this huge audience, though none of us know anyone who actually cares about his show in a serious way. Now he came out just a couple of days ago and said he's a flat-out Democrat. The left understands this. They're as strategic as we are, if not more strategic. And for them to boost people who could drive a wedge within the MAGA movement is about the best strategy they could run. And now we've got actual evidence that's what they were doing.
It's such a sad truth.
NSPM 7 can now be twisted into domestic inquisition. Thousands of JTTF agents embedded in local police departments, campuses, and online, now primed to hunt radicalizing speech that challenges Gorka's protected narrative.
Official terrorism strategy, counterterrorism strategy, literally says they will identify and neutralize political groups that are anti-American, and then they throw in or radically pro-transgender and anarchists. So the bone is, we're going to go after Antifa, we're going to go after the transgender groups, but don't worry, we define all of the former MAGA that are actually patriots as the enemy. Just like they tell you all the police states for the Muslims after 9/11, and then of course the whole time it was really for all of us.
Fuentes, you will burn in hell, you sad little boy.
What the?
This isn't new. It's a bipartisan version of post-9/11 powers. NSPM 7 revives that machinery domestically, mapping evil doers through beliefs once protected by the First Amendment, which this document notably ignores. Recall Bush-era directives enabling mass surveillance and preemption that ensnared Americans for years, from Obama's IRS targeting conservatives to Biden's war on Alex Jones and every America First dissenter. Time to expose it, reject it, and reclaim the freedoms our forefathers bled for. The Great Awakening demands vigilance, not compliance. John Bound reporting for the Alex Jones Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. You guys are here again. And so am I, but only barely. Just barely made it myself. It is 9:11 p.m. on Sunday, May the 17th, 2026. You guys who were here last week or saw the show at some point during last week's show may remember that I may have mentioned offhandedly that my daughter's high school graduation was this weekend, as in today. And of course, it didn't really get started until about 4 o'clock Central Time. And needless to say, I literally rolled in the door with 5 minutes before time to hit the go live button on the broadcast tonight. So my apologies. I am usually really well prepared for every show. But tonight, we're going to do the show, and we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants, as it were. And hopefully everything will be okay. You guys can let me know. But I've barely had time to research any news because I've been out all day at this high school situation. So anyway. But the high school graduation went well. She did graduate, so that's good, along with 130 some of her best friends. And, we went to dinner after that, and everything takes way longer than you think it does, and here we are. So I did make it in time, so I guess I'm meant to do this show tonight. So hello and welcome. I'm glad you guys are here. We are live streaming tonight, again, the Diamond Report Live, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times, and we're going to look at that as well tonight. Let me catch my breath. But yeah, we're looking at my X page right now. And note for you guys who weren't here last week, I do have new live streaming software. So things will look slightly different than, not from last week, but from previous weeks. And we're able to share clips, audio from clips and stuff like that on the fly, a little bit easier. And like, for instance, I can play... I'm just scrolling on my X page. I can play this, and you'll be able to hear it without me having to repatch things and switch things around. I was using a platform called StreamYard before, and it was really clunky on trying to share things, and I think this one should work right away. Let me play this just for an example.
I want to tell you that we're in very great danger from the pollution that's coming down over us. And we've been led astray by the military-industrial complex, and they're responsible for the cloud's creation and weather manipulation programs.
I sacrificed 4 years of my life defending the people of my country just to come home and find there are greater threats here domestically.
There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal.
Now, the aluminum content of rain should be 0.
And there's a lot of argument that aluminum is very common to be found, but aluminum is only common in a bonded form. It's not common in a free form, and we're finding high rates of free aluminum.
Because you can spread so many small little particles through the environment, it dramatically increases the surface area that's in that environment. Because there's so many of them. When you look up at the sun and you see a white haze, that is aluminum floating in the air right now, and it's coming from the aircraft.
So that is an example of how I can share on the fly, play video clips and things like that with having to repatch things. And that clip was a little out of context just given what we're normally talking about. But that is a clip actually that I created a few months back for Mr. Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org. And I just had that at the top of my X feed here and thought I would play that just simply because I wanted to show you that this live stream software, it works pretty well. And we're going to be using that to its fullest, hopefully, in the weeks to come. So anyways, yeah, let's move on here. We've got quite a bit to look at tonight, and I do have some tabs that I had brought up and researched last night because I knew I'd be short on time today. So I do have some things to look at in particular, but there are a few things that I definitely want to bring your attention to before we get into that. So this is the first thing that came up, and I posted a link to a similar article about this in our band group. So if you're part of the band group, you already knew about this, or maybe you heard already. But yes, the soon-to-be Antichrist, also known as King Charles III, announces, and he had to have his full regalia on. He didn't just come out with an announcement from Buckingham Palace or something. He had to have the full, crown and the cloaks and all this other nonsense and stuff on. Why? It seems a lot like something the coming Antichrist would say and do, though, doesn't it? King Charles announces introduction of UK Orwellian digital ID system. And, of course, where the UK goes, unfortunately, the United States will likely follow. It may take a little longer, but it's hard to say. UK monarch King Charles III announced a rollout of the nation's digital ID system, claiming that it will allow more citizens to access government services online. So there you go. That's the benevolent reason. There has been massive opposition, though. Many are concerned that it will usher in programmable digital currency. The system would effectively do away with internet anonymity and comes as the UK government has also announced new crackdowns on anti-Semitic speech, much of which is communicated online. And when they say anti-Semitic speech, they mean that, of course, but they also mean anything you say against the ongoing flood of Muslim immigrants as well. So it's not only the, criticizing anything that Israel might do, you have that, but you also have the criticizing of anything that the Muslims get into when they get brought in illegally as well. So it's both, for the UK at least. While the government professes the system will enhance access to social services, many fear the digital ID scheme could become a precursor to the system resembling China's social credit score model. That's the whole purpose. That's why they want it, which tracks citizens via facial recognition and denies or restricts services based on AI assessments. So would you like to hear the good King Charles stating his benevolent idea here? So let's look at it. Breaking King Charles ministers. My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID. So I haven't pre-auditioned this clip, but I've heard a version of this earlier in the week. So this is dated May 13th. So this happened 4 days ago. But nonetheless, let's listen to KC3, the soon-to-be Antichrist, and let's see what he says.
My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services.
Yeah, so public services. So obviously, if you want to be able to access certain public services from the UK government, you have to get the digital ID. So you can see where you're going. It's a bad idea, isn't it? You can see where they're going with this whole thing. It says, Jim Ferguson argues that digital ID systems will give unelected bureaucrats unprecedented control over everyday life with a centralized digital currency like following close behind. Currency likely following closely behind. Millions of people in the UK signed petitions demanding the government abandon its digital ID plans. You think that'll work? Yeah, I don't think so either. Yet today, King Charles publicly promoted the very same policies many citizens have been warning about. So it sounds like the UK will be getting a brand new shiny digital ID system very soon, just like in the United States, we are all getting accustomed to hearing that no matter what happens, no matter how much you protest these data centers being built in your backyard in whatever neighborhoods around the country, you're going to get it anyway. And I think that's the same thing that's happening in the UK with digital ID. But it'll come here as well. This says from Alex Live, AJ Live, UK monarch King Charles III announced the rollout of the nation's digital ID system, ostensibly to allow more citizens to access government services online. And yeah, we just read that basically. The Sun claims the digital ID would allow people to prove who they are online in one safe place at the touch of a button. It's safe. And because it's what they call safe, then that means we have to have it everywhere, and we have to force everyone to do it. So anyway, yeah, and then Keir Starmer is mentioned in this article as well, who he is very unpopular over there, but do you think he will lose his position? I don't think he will. If he does, he will still have some sort of an important role because, as we said way back a long time ago, Keir Starmer, the current Prime Minister of the UK, is this guy's right-hand man, and I don't think that will be changing anytime soon, but we'll see. Anyway, that is on needtoknow.news, but of course it can be found in many other places as well. And what I want to do here is, because I had really almost no time to prepare tonight, I'm going to make a list here as we go on the fly, make a list of the articles that I read so that I can be sure and come back to them when I do the mail out for all of the subscribers to send them the links. So make sure you're on the Diamond Disc Substack so that you get the email that I send probably Tuesday or so, could be Wednesday, with all of these article links, everything that I talk about tonight. And I don't even know what I'm going to be talking about tonight because, again, No time to do much research. Really, no time at all today, but yesterday I did do a little bit. So that's good. Let's see. We went through the tokenization last week. Let's look at this one. And this is one of those things where we want to make sure that we don't get all caught up in what a certain company is doing about geoengineering, causing geoengineering. Yes, obviously people are saying, yes, geoengineering is real, it's happening, it's ongoing. It is certainly a lot of companies out there are making millions and millions of dollars doing it. That's not to belittle that. However, that is not the main problem. The main problem is all of these orchestrated worldwide government programs where the governments are colluding together to spray us, okay? That's the thing to pay attention to, not these little startups. And that's kind of what this particular article is about. But I wanted to bring it to your attention anyway, just because this one was new to me as far as what they'll be spraying, the actual particles they'll be using. So that's why I think this one's important. And note that it's an Israeli geoengineering company. So just by mentioning the fact that it's an Israeli geoengineering company makes you anti-Semitic. So just be aware of that. Stardust Solutions, an Israeli geoengineering company, aims to cool the earth with tiny particles. Where have you heard that before? So this is the little blurb about this particular article. Stardust Solutions is an Israeli for-profit solar geoengineering company that was formed in 2023. Stardust claims that its sunlight reflective material can reflect significant amounts of the sun's rays with little or no damage to the atmosphere. Stardust Solutions geoengineering particles are made from amorphous silica. So that's a little bit new element. I don't know that I've ever heard that silica was being used. They're using something called amorphous silica, which is a food additive, and calcium carbonate, which is in eggshells and limestone. It claims the particles are biodegradable. So they care about the environment so much. A report indicates that Stardust hopes to cool the atmosphere by 1.5 degrees Celsius or 34.7 degrees Fahrenheit. That seems like an awful big wide range there. Solar geoengineering could alter weather patterns, impacting food productions and economies, putting over 2 billion people at risk. I think they mean 8 billion people. So far, the company has only tested the particles in the laboratory and says it would not test them outdoors unless it were in a partnership with a government, which means, of course, the U.S. government. So anyway, this is probably one of those things that if you're in the anti-geoengineering community, you may start hearing more and more about. People saying, "Oh, this is where it's going," or "This is just a plan." They haven't actually started implementing it yet. And from the standpoint of what these people want to use and what they want to do, that's very possible. But that doesn't change the fact that the geoengineering programs have been going on for decades, and it's a cooperation between all the major companies. All the major countries throughout the entire world. And this startup Israeli geoengineering company would only be adding to the problem. And it's not, I don't know that it would be creating new problems, but it certainly would be adding to the existing mess that we already are all breathing in every single day. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I saw that headline a few days ago and thought that it was worth a mention. So again, that one's on needtoknow.news. Again, we're going to grab that article headline for later and save it. What else we got going here? We're going through these articles in live time because I didn't have time to look at these too much in advance, really none on this particular site. And I do like this site. It does cover a wide range of different topics and important things, I think. Oh, they've already pushed out Marty Makary from the FDA, the Fraud and Death Administration. 13 months and out, it says Dr. Marty Makary pushed out. Has resigned as commissioner of the FDA. Dr. Robert Malone, who advocated against mRNA COVID VAXXs, criticized Dr. Makary for failing to remove COVID jabbies from the market. Dr. Malone said that Dr. Makary was behind the suppression of key findings about the shots, such as the pediatric deaths that were not being allowed to be released to the public. Some pro-life advocates are also criticized McCary as he reportedly had discretion to approve a new abortion drug called mifepristone, Mifepristone, when the data shows it sends 1 in 10 women to the emergency room, and he also froze out pro-life leaders. So he sounds like a real winner here. Anyway, apparently he's stepping down, so that's interesting. I remember hearing a little bit about him, but not a whole lot. This one's important, and I had a separate article pulled up on this one. So if you want to know what Trump really thinks about you, well, he came right out and said it this week. Trump says he doesn't think about Americans' financial situation when negotiating with Iran, but I think he means at all. That's the way I interpret it. I don't think about Americans. Trump said that the only issue that matters to him when negotiating is preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and that how Americans are doing financially is not a consideration, not even a little bit. That is absolute, perfect, 100% sound clip awesomeness for the Democrat Party. So they have exactly the pieces. I mean, Trump is literally giving the Democrats the golden sound clips to use against him and against the Republican Party coming up in the midterms. Trump's approval ratings have tanked as inflation and gas prices have risen, and many Americans are opposed to his war, and that it is his war and Israel's war. Polling data indicates that Americans who were surveyed aren't interested in a war against Iran on Israel's behalf, and they apparently don't much care whether Iran has or obtains a nuclear weapon. An Economist YouGov poll that ended on May 11th showed that those surveyed opposed the war by a margin of 22 points, 56 to 34. Other polls have had similar results. So here's the clip. So here's what it says. I'll just read the actual quote here from what the reporter says. To what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal? That was the question the reporter said. Trump says, not even a little bit. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I can't believe he actually said this. What a surreal and unbelievable statement from a president. That's from Ben Swan. That's what he said. So anyways, yeah, that's giving the Democrat Party, which, you know, maybe it doesn't matter at this point as far as elections go, but just literally giving them a chamber full of all sorts of ammunition to use against him. And not really just him, but Republicans in general, saying that Trump does not care about the constituents that voted him into office. So there you go. It's a gift. He basically gift wrapped it for him. Let me see if there's anything else on this particular site. This person here that they're showing is G. Edward Griffin. He is one of the fathers, really, of this alternative news idea of even having an alternative to the mainstream media. And he's put out a lot of really, really good work over the years. I personally have talked to him a couple different times. We interviewed him at least once, maybe twice, on Lost Arts Radio, back when I was producing that show several years back. This was probably, I think it was maybe during the whole COVID thing. So it was about 2020 or possibly 2019. I don't know. It might have been 2020, 21, somewhere in there. But there's some good Lost Arts Radio shows that we did, at least one, maybe two, with G. Edward Griffin. And I think he's in his 90s now, so he's getting up there, but he is still really, really with it as far as he knows what he's talking about. White House confessions, is the war in Iran being used for insider trading? Well, was the sky blue today? Or any day? Trump's special assistant on the White House Domestic Policy Council, Maxim Lott. What a name, Maxim Lott. Admitted that White House advisors make decisions about policy for Trump based on what feels like a good idea, quote unquote, and according to their own interpretation of what Trump would want. Executive Office Budget Manager Benjamin Elliston said, "We have to get rid of Trump. He's," meaning Trump, "is effing it up for everybody. We've got to get rid of him. he insisted that Trump is a madman. Again, this is Executive Office Budget Manager. Elliston said that he suspects that the war in Iran is being used to manipulate oil prices for insider trading and personal gain. He estimated that the war with Iran cost $1 billion per day. $1 billion a day. Man. White House confessions. Maxim Lott. Oh, okay. That's why he admitted it. It's because James O'Keefe caught him. Well, let's see what this clip's all about here.
Like the decision-making processes are a little bit chaotic.
A White House policy advisor opens up about the internal decision-making processes throughout the White House.
I think it's just the overall tone and the government right now is a little bit unusual, trying to fix itself.
Maxim Lott even acknowledges that officials below Trump will often make decisions for the president, presuming what his stance would be.
In theory, everything should sort of come from the president. Yeah. But it might come from the level below him where they're like, I think I know the president well enough to say what he would say on this. It's like, yeah, we would want to do that. That would be popular. And then at my level, like I don't know, 5 levels below or whatever, still there's a lot of discretion to be like, this is clearly like what we would want to do.
And this is apparently done with no financial analysis or concern. It is just based on assumptions or on what, quote, feels like a good idea.
Wow. How about that? This is this is a kind of a sting operation here, obviously in, where they've caught this guy on a hidden camera. This guy thinks he's talking to a real hot date, I'm sure. And she's wearing one of those body cam type cameras with a microphone built in. But I think this is pretty important. This is not something that I'd heard about. This came out on the 13th, so a few days ago. So pretty interesting, yeah. And then, of course, that information is being used for insider trading. That's the whole purpose of what Trump is doing. Trump and his cronies, the people right around him, are ingratiating themselves and making all sorts of billions of dollars. If they were doing good things in addition to that, that would be one thing, but they're not. So that's kind of where I am with that whole thing. But it's bad news. But yeah, leave it up to O'Keefe Media Group. I think they've uncovered yet again more corruption, but will anything happen? Does it matter? I can't say that it does or that it will. Anyway, that is the top, most recent, and best probably articles on needtoknow.news. Let's look at the Liberty Beacon. Jump over to here. This is another website that I usually look at as well. And one of the big stories this week have been the ongoing concern here of people finding these ticks. Tick-borne bioweapon disease deployed. Boxes of ticks found on farms all across America. They're literally dropping them from planes. Have you heard this? Bill Gates funded self-limiting gene tick modification and meat allergies surge. All right. So this is the Lone Star tick idea. Well, this particular one is not, I don't think, a Lone Star tick. But because the Lone Star ticks, from what I've seen, have an actual little, you can kind of see it there, have a little dot on its back. But they are coming packed full of what they're calling alpha-gal syndrome, which we've talked about before in the show. But basically, if you get bit by this particular bug, you now have a lovely parting gift, and that would be a severe allergy to eating red meat. I kid you not. Nope, they're being bioengineered and dropped from planes. So just be aware that they're doing this, guys. This is insane. So now we're getting blasted by all sorts of wild chemicals and things like that we're breathing in. Now we're getting bombed by ticks and who knows what else they're dropping from planes. Lyme disease epidemic incoming. Okay, well, this is a different thing, but yeah, alpha-gal as well. I'm sure we'll get to that. Experts worry about an unusually bad year for tick-borne diseases. This is a post from Substack called Second Smartest Guy in the World, which I've heard of before. The Mockingbird mainstream media has been activated to seed and normalize yet another bioweapon release with the early spring and summer of 2026 diseases of choice being Lone Star, there you go, and Lyme disease payloads and a massive deployment of lab-modified gain-of-function ticks. That's just what we need. Lab-modified gain-of-function ticks. Like we didn't have enough problems. Again, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. They're being modified. This is where the initial releases of this latest gain-of-function bioweapon attack on America has now been aggressively intensified. A 30-year-old Ohio horse breeder says she's never seen anything like it. I can't take the tick situation anymore. There are ticks everywhere. Yeah. And then the other side of the country experiencing the very same genetically modified ticks have been deployed. Phoenix, Arizona is reporting an uptick in tick bites and emergency room visits. So these are tiny. I mean, sometimes the ticks are a little bit larger to start, but these seem to be like micro-sized even. It seems to be an issue across multiple states, farms, ranchers, outdoorsmen. Everyone is wondering, is Bill Gates somehow involved? Tick bites on the rise. See what they say.
There's been an uptick in emergency room visits for ticks, and actually, this is actually tick removal. And one of the things that we've learned at the National Pest Management Association, we surveyed Americans and found that only 31% of Americans actually know how to properly remove a tick. So I think this is sending people to the emergency room.
Okay, so tell us, how do you properly remove a tick?
Yeah, well, there are lots of home remedies for how to remove a tick.
You can use alcohol.
The best way to do it is just simply with a set of tweezers to get a hold of that tick right at its head, and then slowly but steadily pull. Don't yank it. Don't twist it. You don't want to break any part of that tick off inside your skin. Believe me, when you're pulling on a tick slowly and steadily, it will let go, and you'll be able to remove that thing from your skin. It's important to remove ticks as soon as possible. It often takes time for ticks to be able to transmit disease, and that's the real concern when it comes to ticks on people.
Yes. So they make my skin crawl. I don't know about you guys. Just start getting itchy all over just watching them. Anyway, it says far more nefarious than most can even comprehend, because the New World Order globe pedo bioterrorist apparatchiks. Well, how about that? That's all true. New World Order, globo-pedo bioterrorist apparatchiks have been activated to strategically deposit boxes of weaponized ticks at farms all across America. Yeah, very true. A lot of the same clips here. Bill Gates bioengineered ticks in the alpha-gal trap. Bioengineered Lone Star ticks in metal tick boxes. Metal tick boxes are being dropped across farms and woods. They swarm animals and humans, causing permanent allergies to red meat. So just be aware, you guys. It is out there, and it does seem to be getting worse. Is Bill Gates behind the tick explosion in Ohio? Tom Renz is asking on his X account. So it would not surprise me one bit. I mean, it seems like the perfect person. Oh, here's a picture of a Lone Star tick. They have a dot on their back. They want you allergic to meat. A peer-reviewed paper argued it's ethically permissible to let ticks infect Americans with a red meat allergy to fight climate change. This isn't a joke. It's bioethics via bioweapon. Yeah, I'm wondering if that video clip is embedded here with the guy from the panel on where they're talking about red meat. This isn't a video, though. There's just some clip or some still pictures. But yeah, I don't think it's this one. Anyways, yeah, there's actually a video clip circulating around out there of a guy from the World Economic Forum panel where he says that it's the best thing to do, and that is to make sure that these ticks sink their teeth into you so that you can never eat red meat again. So he is totally fine with it. And of course they are. I mean, it's Klaus Schwab and Larry the Fink and King Charles. What do you expect? So anyway, that is Liberty Beacon article. Let me grab this link. Okay, and then the next story from this site. Again, we're sort of perusing the news live Britain is the canary in the coal mine. Yeah, no kidding. Thanks to KC3. So we'll save this one too. Replacing globalism with national self-sufficiency is a life or death decision. You would think so. UK's recent elections were a bloodbath for the establishment political parties and a resounding success for Farage's Reform UK. Voters are furious with their ruling elites. I would point out that, from what I've heard, Farage is not that great. He was right at first, but he's apparently one of them and just a really good actor, from what I gather. Now, I don't know. I'm not there. It says, because these were local elections, though, Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour Party remains in control of the national government. Therefore, the election results will likely prove symbolically seismic, yet practically anemic. So there you go. Doesn't matter. Starmer insists on rejecting the democratic will of Brexit voters and reintegrating the UK with the European Union. The ruling elite's hostility toward British citizens' desire for national sovereignty will produce many unsavory outcomes, including a likely surge of foreign migrants resettling in the UK, whereas the local elections have been correctly interpreted as an expression of the public's overwhelming opposition to mass migration of foreigners into their communities. Starmer's Labour Party will exacerbate the problem. Yeah, of course, that's what they do. And again, Starmer works directly for King Charles, the future Antichrist of the world. Anyway, there is a little bit more here on this article as well. There was apparently a million man march, not called that, but over 1 million people march in the UK this weekend. A Tommy Robinson backed political march, and I don't know if that's mentioned here or not. We may get to that. I don't really see it, at least not on this particular website. Okay, this one is one that we have a video on. We'll play this more toward the end of the broadcast because it does have a lot of information in it about the CV19 VAXXs that may prove to be something that I don't necessarily want to go out right this moment because I'm still a little leery, having lost so many videos and entire channels on YouTube. You just never know what you can say. And this one's fairly damning, I think, of the jabs and Fauci and all of that stuff. 20-year CIA veteran confirms Fauci and the CIA intentionally covered up CV19's lab origin. Here we're posting a tweet which has an 11-minute testimony from CIA veteran James Erdman III. Dr. Holscher provides a 50-second extract of this in his Substack article. So that is this clip here, and the video that we're going to play toward the end of the show tonight is a Bound report, and it's got some of this same video in it from James Erdman III. So we will get to that. Let's not do that right now, but there is an article basically that goes along with that. So let me make a note of that particular link so we can come back to it. This one is a Leo Hohmann's Substack post that we will get to when we look at his Substack in a little bit. But it's also mirrored here on the Liberty Beacon, and that was what I brought up earlier. What's behind U.S. obsession with building thousands of AI data centers? Yeah, they've pretty much decided that, we're going to listen to the people, but we've already made our decision, and you can say what you want. You're still getting it anyway. And it's just like the digital ID over in the UK. It's the same thing. They're just shoving it down our throats. What's behind U.S. obsession with building thousands of AI data centers? Look at Washington's new autonomous warfare center for clues. Again, this is a Leo Hohmann post. The wars in Iran and Ukraine will continue with new wars emerging. These are the beta tests for new technology that will ultimately be turned inward against dissidents and troublemakers. I don't think this says ultimately be turned. I think it will be right away, don't you? I don't think they'll bother waiting. Now, this is a Mike Adams graphic. He created this for Leo Hohmann's post here, but it's got the guy in, all tied up in the middle here with his digital ID, says individual rights, and then around him we have artificial intelligence, quantum computing, Internet of Things, blockchains, digital currencies, DNA databases, synthetic media and deepfakes, brain-computer interfaces, robotics and automation, energy storage and fusion, 15-minute cities, social media and facial recognition, as well as, back to the beginning here, artificial intelligence. AI is the sum of all things human, the pinnacle of human achievement without God. In that sense, AI is the physical, tangible evidence that we are living in the last days. How about that? AI is the physical, tangible evidence that we are living in the last days. I couldn't agree more. When the restrainer is removed and evil is given a long leash to drive things to ultimate destruction. Yeah, I completely agree with that. God, the creator and sustainer of life and the source of all that is good and beautiful, never forces anyone to accept his authority. That's just the way God is. So when a society of civilization collectively rejects his authority, he gives them over to their own delusions. The biggest delusion of all is that man doesn't need God to achieve good outcome in life. How about that? Do you think that is what the strong delusion could mean? I never thought of that one, I must say. The biggest delusion of all is that man doesn't need God to achieve a good outcome in life. And AI is mankind's crowning achievement, its ultimate Tower of Babel. AI is a competing system of life crafted by the worst people on earth, meant as a counter to God's system. You have questions? Don't go to God in prayer or the Bible, just ask AI. In doing so, you are bowing to those who programmed AI, who taught it what to say in answer to any conceivable question by feeding it reams and reams of selected data and denying it other forms of data. These are the types of people who accompanied President Trump this week on his state visit to China. All of them are either in the business of building the AI-powered beast system or funding it. They sincerely believe that they are the smartest people on the planet. That inherent human arrogance is a key ingredient of the end times, mark the beast. It's all things human, the number of man to the third power, the unholy trinity of man-based power and authority in rebellion against God's order. Absent any reliance or trust in humanity's creator, humanity will destroy itself. That is the mark of Lucifer, and it leads to self-destruction. Trust in man's systems as savior of the world and your personal savior, and you will join him on the road to perdition. It was he, Lucifer, who told Adam and Eve in the garden, do not believe God. Go your own way. Craft your own story. Don't believe the narrative given you by the one who claims to be all-powerful, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Look to yourselves for these qualities instead of to God, and you surely will not die. This is why we call the tech bros and their globalist banker buddies Luciferian. They have set up a system that not only eliminates the authority of God, but sets up a false God in his place to sit on his throne. The God of self-promotion and self-adulation. You can see this principle in everything the U.S. empire does. Trump and his corporate behemoths are just the human faces of that arrogant, self-aggrandizing system. They embody it perfectly, but the mindset is rampant throughout American and Western society. We are the best. We have the most powerful military. We write the rules of trade and finance. Accept them or get out of the way. Accept them or we will kill you. We can kill you with economic sanctions, or we can kill you with our military. This is really good, isn't it? Without God as the head, civilization devolves into the law of the jungle, where nothing but raw power determines who eats and who doesn't, who lives and who dies. That's the path we are currently going down, with all the wars being stirred up around the world. Wars that will destroy nations, peoples, and cultures. Not just through the modern technological efficiency of AI-based kill chains, where autonomous warfare takes over for human decisions on the battlefield, but also through the famines and pestilences that lurk in the shadows of war. Yeah, so that's just the beginnings here of this particular article. Stealing the life source is the next section. And And then we've got a video embedded and some other things. So there's a bit more here. That is, again, that's a Leo Hohmann post, and his stuff's always really good, which is why I pretty much always refer to it. So those are some of the top articles on the Liberty Beacon. Let's jump over to this one. All right. Most recent article on technocracy.news, Pax Silica. So back to the silica again. Who owns the rails of the AI civilization? Pax Silica is the new Pax Americana translated into silicon. The 20th century order ran oil, steel, sea lanes, central banks, and military alliances. The 21st century order is being reorganized around compute, semiconductors, critical minerals, energy, data centers, logistics corridors, payment rails, and trusted capital. That is not rhetoric. It is now policy architecture. The State Department calls it Pax Silica, a U.S.-led AI and supply chain framework built around secure technology supply chains, economic security, artificial intelligence, critical minerals, semiconductors, energy, manufacturing, infrastructure, and trustworthy systems. The declaration signed in Washington on December 12, 2025, described the objective as building secure, prosperous, and innovative global technology supply chains. Its founding signatories include the United States, Australia, Japan, South Korea, United Kingdom, Singapore, and Israel. Its language is revealing. Reliable supply chains are indispensable from economic security. Artificial intelligence is a transformative force, and the AI revolution is reorganizing the world economy and global supply chains. This week, the architecture moved from declaration to diplomacy. Talking about Trump's visit to Beijing. So let's get into that just a little bit more here. Trump arrived in Beijing for a high-stakes summit with Xi Jinping amid live tensions over trade, AI, Taiwan, Iran, rare earths, aviation, agriculture, and technology access. The corporate roster around the trip was not incidental. Reuters reported a delegation drawn from American technology, finance, aviation, agriculture, payments, semiconductor, and industrial sectors. Elon Musk, Apple's Tim Cook. These are people that went on the trip. So we have Musk, we have Tim Cook from Apple, Boeing's Kelly Ortberg, GE Aerospace's Larry Culp, BlackRock's Larry the Fink, Blackstone's Stephen Schwartzman, Micron's Sanjay Mehrotra, MasterCard's Michael Maybach, Qualcomm's Cristiano Amon, Visa's Ryan McKerney, Cargill's Brian Sykes, Coherent's Jim Anderson, and Illumina's Jacob Theason, and others. Cisco CEO Chuck Robbins was reportedly invited but unable to attend because of Cisco's earnings schedule. The late addition of NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, or as Trump calls them, NVIDIA. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang made the signal even clearer. Reuters reported that Huang joined the trip after an invitation from Trump as NVIDIA sought a breakthrough on stalled H200 AI chip sales in China. The U.S. had reportedly cleared through roughly 10 Chinese firms, including Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, and JD.com, to buy NVIDIA's H200 chips, but deliveries remain unresolved as of May 14th because the deal was tangled between the U.S. licensing conditions and Chinese government pressure to reduce dependence on foreign chips. Yeah. So anyways, it looks like Jensen Huang went as well. So all of these massive people in charge of these massive companies. Definitely a who's who for sure of Pax Silica. But yeah, notice the heads of Visa and MasterCard were in there as well. You probably have either a Visa or MasterCard, I'm guessing. So it's going to affect everybody, essentially, is what I'm getting at here. We'll look at one more from this site. AI psychosis coming into focus for the rest of us. Yeah? You ever feel like that? So this is just a little intro piece here, but you can listen to the full article on this particular page, technocracy.news. In September 2023, the person that wrote this article, Patrick Wood, who heads up this website, wrote about the simulacrum. Gene Baudrillard's concept of a reality so thoroughly replaced by its representation that the original disappears entirely. I said that billions of people risked being captured by it. I said that while everyone was staring at shiny new simulacra forming before their eyes, reality was escaping out the back door. So that's just a little intro piece, but that's all there is on this. Apparently the rest of that article is behind the paywall now. But again, you can go to this link and listen to the full article here by audio. So there's a way to hear it. 7-minute audio clip looks like. Anyway, those are the two pieces here on technocracy.news. North Carolina residents revolt and stop a giant mosque from going up. Yeah, that was an interesting story. I heard about that earlier. Somebody bought some property and decided he was going to put a mosque up on his property, and they shot that down. I thought that was pretty interesting, especially given the fact that it was liberal North Carolina. A funny thing happened when a guy posted a Monet online and told people it was AI. Let's see what that is. AI is one of those topics that brings out the drama in people. Some people think it's going to destroy civilization. Others act like it's a genie in a cyber bottle that can replace every human skill, thought, and creative spark. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, which is why the smartest position right now is cautious, but not hysterical. Because here's the thing, AI is here and it's likely not going anywhere. It's already changing art, writing, music, design, business, education, and probably half the things we don't even fully understand yet. That doesn't mean we should pretend that there aren't some dangers, zero ethical problems, no job concerns, or cultural weirdness. But just because those concerns are valid doesn't mean we should join the anti-AI panic mob every time coding makes something pretty. Which brings us to a very funny thing that just happened on X that proves how emotional and biased this whole AI debate has become. An X user posted what he claimed was an AI-generated image in the style of Monet and asked people to explain why it was inferior to the real thing. So here's the post. I just generated an image in the style of a Monet painting using AI. Please describe in as much detail as possible what makes this inferior to a real Monet painting. Let me click on it. For those of you who like Monet, here's the full screen view of this. If you want to look at it a little closer. I think you know where we're going with this, though. The critics showed up big time. They analyzed it and they dismissed it. They found all sorts of flaws and explained what made it weaker, cheaper, and less human than a real Monet. See, here's some of the comments. I'll just read a couple comments here. I'm disappointed. I have to even point it out. There's no cohesion to the depth and color choices. The reflection of the tree bleeds into the lily pads with no regard for spatial depth or contrast. These people like this love to hear themselves talk and think, don't they? The background lily pad algae amalgam is egregiously vague, like most AI art. I guarantee you that whoever said that is a teacher somewhere. The reflection in AI art is just noise splattered right. Monet actually understood how light behaves on water. So that's just a couple of the quotes. There's more here. Obviously, people fell for this. So those are all very interesting answers, but here's just one problem. It was a real Monet. The original X post was a perfect little trap. Yes, it was, wasn't it? The image looked like a Monet because it actually was a Monet. But once people were told it was AI, they started judging it through that filter. Suddenly, the same image that would have been treated as beautiful, pure genius, and emotionally balanced became inferior because people believed a machine made it. It's funny, but it's also revealing. People weren't reacting to the image, they were reacting to the label the X user slapped on it, AI. And immediately they started looking for problems. And in all fairness, plenty of AI art is weird, soulless, sloppy, and obviously machine-made. We've all seen the extra fingers, the plastic faces and arms coming out of people's heads. But this little Monet trick shows that some people aren't judging the work in front of them. They're judging the idea of AI. People tend to downgrade art, writing, and everything when they're told that it's AI. That's true. You could throw music in there as well. I'm getting a lot of that these days. For you guys that don't know, I'm involved in music on all the other hours when I'm not sitting right here in front of you on Sunday nights. And, well, not all the hours, but many of them. And I get that question all the time. Is using AI-based music okay to submit for whatever? And I always tell them that we're happy to listen, but it doesn't mean that it's going to get chosen. And there's a good chance that you will be looked over in favor of actual real humans playing instruments in the room together. That's how we like our music. We don't want to listen to music generated 100% from machines. We just don't. That's just human nature, I think. Anyway, I think that kind of fits in with this Monet thing. So, anyway, there it goes on. There's more here. So, pretty interesting, isn't it? Revolver.news is where that particular story is. Okay, it looks like we have another airplane thing. Let's see what this is. Idaho air show horror after 2 jets crash in front of frightened spectators. Oh, goody. Gee whiz. Another airplane accident. Of course, this is an air show, but 2 jets crashed in midair in an air show in Idaho on Sunday, today. But all 4 crew members were able to safely eject. Wow. The 2 aircraft were taking part in the Gunfighters air show at the Mountain Home Air Force Base, some 50 miles southeast of Boise, when they crashed. Pictures from the scene show a huge plume of black smoke pouring into the sky following the crash. We had 4 good parachutes. The crews were able to eject, an air show announcer told the crowd. Yeah, that's a crazy thing to witness, huh? There's the plume of black smoke. There's always a positive in our world if you are so inclined to take the time now to say a prayer, the announcer concluded. That's crazy. I wonder if they all 4 hit more or less the same area. Dramatic video shows the 2 fighter jets colliding midair before 4 parachutes are deployed. That's pretty impressive that no one was injured, I guess. Both aircraft appeared to be flying extremely close together when they collided and seemingly became entangled, hurtling towards the ground as sparks shot off. The 2 jets, which appear to be Navy Super Hornet fighters, smashed into the runway with an enormous bang, producing a huge fireball and a cloud of smoke. The base was on lockdown after this happened. This was the first time the air show had been held in 8 years after the last event in 2018 saw a hang glider pilot die in an accident. Wow, they are not having good luck at this particular air show. Okay, here you can see the 2 planes colliding. Here's a video. Let's see if we can get this to play and see if it's going to work. Yeah. That's not supposed to... Oh, I see. The 4 guys were in the 2 planes. Okay. Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, you have 4 guys instantly jumping out. That's pretty amazing. Heck of a show, huh? You got to be thinking that they were thinking as they were coming down, yeah, don't let us land on top of the exploded bodies of the planes. Man, that's scary stuff. But luckily the pilots were okay. Total craziness. Anyway, that one's on New York Post, actually. It's where that one is. Seems like we have something with airplanes every week, don't we? Spencer Pratt is running for mayor of L.A., and he's been putting out some really, really well-done commercials. And he's trying to take Mayor Karen Bass's position. And I hope he gets it. He lost his house in the fires in L.A. a couple years ago now, I guess. And yeah, he's running for mayor. New Spencer Pratt AI ad. Let's see what this is. Let's jump over to this one and see what this is. Another new banger. AI is going to win Spencer Pratt the mayor's chair, and I, for one, couldn't be happier. Okay, so this is the ad. Let's check it out. Let's see what it's like. Again, this is made with AI, and the guy that is running this particular or came up with this ad is running for mayor of Los Angeles.
These idiots won't know what hit them.
The backyard BBQ ban is working just as planned.
Los Angeles forgot what protection feels like.
Is that Super Pratt?
I am Super Pratt.
We can't beat him. He's got the meme vote.
What if the question isn't the answer?
We need more chaos. We'll flood the polls with memes. We'll confuse everyone.
I can't. It's too confusing, even for me. Ugh. I don't know.
I'm going to stop it here only because, and I want to see the rest of it. I really do. But this playing unlicensed music on a live stream is super dangerous. I didn't know I was going to do that because obviously I hadn't seen the commercial before. But I do want to link to this so that you guys can see this really well done AI commercials. This is somebody who's using AI for something good. Anyway, Spencer Pratt, again, running for LA mayor. So I don't want to let that go too long just because it can stop my live stream or kick it off certain platforms, YouTube being the main one, of course, if we don't have a license for certain songs and things like that. So I don't want to get into that. But anyway, yeah, it's worth watching. Obviously, you can tell it was really well done. Amazon just applied for 10,781 HB1 visas. And I bet they'll all come from India. Amazon just applied for 10,781 H-1B visas. They don't want to hire you, your kids, or your grandkids. They want to hire cheap foreign laborers from places like India, China, and Thailand. We will not be replaced. End of story. Yeah, this guy, I've mentioned him before, but it's been a while. James Fishback seems to be running a really well-done campaign over down in Florida. So let's see what this one's about.
Amazon just applied for 10,781 H-1B visas. They don't want to hire you, your kids, or your grandkids, but they want to hire cheap foreign slave labor from India, China, the Philippines, and Thailand. Not because they're smarter, not because they're more qualified, because they're cheaper. They are cheaper. We will not be replaced. End of story.
Yeah, well said, huh? Italy, North African migrant rammed into crowd of people, then proceeded to get out of the car and start stabbing. Man, I don't think we want to watch that one, do we? But that's breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. So the migrant rams into a crowd of people, then proceeds to get out of the car and start stabbing people. Wow. Unreal. Father of two dies after getting trapped in a Boston subway station escalator while more than a dozen people walked past him without helping. These are all pretty much posts on X. I'm going to link to that one, and we can, you can look at that in the X post, or I'm sorry, in the Substack post that I send out in a couple days. Again, all these articles are on revolver.news. If you guys want to look them up yourself, feel free to do that. Brady Bunch cast made nearly nothing from decades of reruns. Yeah, that's true. Those types of shows from the 70s especially and earlier, it was just the people at the top, really the corporations at the top that made all the money on those. That was it. The actors got paid whatever salary or time, whatever their going rate was at the time, and that's it. They didn't have any investiture really in any sort of the ownership of most of those shows. Not all, but most of them didn't. Rubio says, we have provided $100 million in food and medicine for Cuba. Again, another X post. I'll link to this one, but let's not jump off to that right now. Lots of links to X from this particular site. Seems like more than normal even. Vile shoot him in the neck like Charlie Kirk chant erupts during massive London protests. Huh. It's a New York Post article. Pet goats save trapped family after killer tornado with winds reaching 200 miles per hour demolishes their home. Pet goats saved a trapped family. Well, we got to see that. Pet goats saved trapped family after killer tornado with winds reaching 200 miles per hour demolishes their home. There they are. It says it's unbelievable. After a powerful tornado barreled through Enid, Oklahoma on April 23rd, the Sloat family was trapped beneath the earth in their storm shelter under tons of debris when they were suddenly rescued by their 2 pet goats. Wow. They saved us. No doubt about it. Looking to see what they did. The roar swell. Oh, they must have just been making noise. Let's see what happened. Talking about the tornado ripping through. Wow, look at that. What's left of their house. They raced to their underground hideaway. They barely slammed the cellar doors shut before the half-mile wide tornado chewed through everything above them as it raced through Enid for 10 menacing miles. There was glass shattering. We could hear the bricks falling. It was heartbreakingly sure their 3-year-old pet goats, Percy and Penny, would never survive the violent twister. But they did. They jumped when a loud crash sounded in the shelter's steel doors. We looked up and we saw the door was dented in. We didn't know at the time, but the chimney fell on top of the doors. Thousands of bricks. When the storm passed, they were still alive, but unable to escape, trapped beneath mountains of debris. We called the 911 first responder team on my wife's phone, and it still had a signal. We learned that they arrived about 30 minutes after the tornado passed. They had no idea if we were there or if we were even around. The rescuers walked and searched but couldn't locate the survivors, so they waited. Then, just when all hope was fading, the faint sound from above the rubble reached them. My daughter and I could have sworn that we heard goat noises and thought there was no way. Against all odds, Percy and Penny had survived, and the 4-legged heroes stomped, bleated, and refused to budge from where the family and friends sat, buried alive. The rescuers had no idea where we were, but Percy and Penny knew. They stood right over us and kept a steady stream of noise until the emergency people came over and started removing the bricks. I'll be darned. So the goats knew where the people were below them and started making all this racket. That is really amazing. Truly a God thing. Wow. That's some smart goats right there. So there you go. Goat heroes. And I don't mean greatest of all time. They are just literally goats. Yeah, that was kind of a crazy one, huh? That was AOL. Weird. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention this. This is good news. Tina Peters, who we've talked about many times on this show, well, it looks like she's getting out. Says Colorado governor cuts Tina Peters' prison sentence in half, will release her on parole June 1st. But she never should have been in there to begin with, clearly. Says the extraordinary but expected decision puts Governor Jared Polis at odds not only with fellow Democrats, but also with many Republicans in Colorado. Yeah, they didn't want this nice lady here exposing all the election fraud that was found. So, but yeah, it appears she could be paroled on June 1st, which is early. But again, she shouldn't have been there to begin with. And Trump did nothing for her. He should have federalized the prison and gone in and removed her. That's what he should have done, but he didn't do it. He didn't do any of it. So anyway, yeah, it says Tina Peters' post here on X. Thank you, Governor Polis. So she's going to be getting out, it appears. So let's hope she can stay amongst the living here before the end of the month, because that's the only other thing. I wonder why they didn't just release her right away. I wonder why it has to be on the 1st. But I think that's good news, though, from the standpoint of it looks like she will be getting out. So that's good news. Colorado Sun is where this particular story is. Pretty crazy, but that's good news. Let's see if that actually happens. Of course, we have a few weeks left before that does happen, but Yeah, she definitely needs to be freed. Yeah, and I heard about this too. This is something that I thought I would mention. This is a Breitbart article. Trump floats Venezuela as the 51st state idea. I mean, we already have a 51st state anyways. It's Israel. I mean, and they get all of our money. They get all of our everything. President Trump's Truth Social post depicting Venezuela overlaid with an American flag and labeled the 51st state followed a Fox News report that Trump said he was seriously considering such a move. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. President Trump posted a graphic on Truth Social May 12th showing Venezuela outline filled with American flag. The post came one day after Fox News' John Roberts wrote on X, just got off the phone with Trump. He told me he's seriously considering a move to make Venezuela the 51st state. Trump's post follows months of major developments in U.S.-Venezuela relations after the January 3rd arrest of Maduro and his wife by U.S. forces in Caracas in a law enforcement operation authorized by Trump. Since Maduro's downfall, Venezuela has been led by acting president Delcy Rodriguez, who had served as Maduro's vice president and oil minister, and has cooperated with the Trump administration on its three-phase stabilization, recovery, and transition plan. The two countries reestablished diplomatic ties in late March. Rodriguez later thanked Trump and Secretary of State Rubio for their willingness to pursue diplomatic, economic, and cooperative relations with Venezuela during a signing ceremony for the new mining law, which rolled back socialist-era restrictions on the mining sector and introduced provisions to attract foreign investment. The IMF and World Bank also resumed dealings with Caracas after a 7-year rupture. On May 1st, Breitbart reported that the United States had restored direct commercial flights between Miami and Caracas after a 7-year interruption. Wow. The State Department announcing flights between Miami and Caracas restored. U.S. Charge of Affairs John Barrett said the route was tied to Trump and Secretary of State Rubio's three-phase plan for Venezuela and showed the country was in the recovery phase. I don't know. Trump has pledged to secure the release of Venezuelan political prisoners, telling reporters on May 13th, we're going to get them all out. Reports said that political detention since 2014 were that 457 confirmed political prisoners remain in Venezuela as of last week. I don't know if they mean Americans who got caught up in Venezuela and remained there in jail or what. It sounds kind of like it. Since 2014. That's going back a ways. Wow. So yes, Trump wants to make Venezuela the 51st state. Because of course he does. Yes. Makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. It makes sense that he would say that. Now, do we want that? Of course not. Again, perusing the news. We're just going through the news live here with you guys. And I may find some, we may do something this week that we don't normally do. I may go through the news a little bit more on my own and then include some links in the Substack post and not spend a lot of extra time tonight trying to find things. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to waste your time doing that. I can still go through it and do it after the fact and just add it into the links on the Substack post. We could do it that way. So yeah, anyway, that is most of the key articles here on revolver.news, which is one of those go-to sources that I do like to mention. We should look at this website. So let's go to Daily Signal, see what they have. Texas Children's Hospital settlement deals massive defeat to medical transgender agenda. The Washington Stand. The U.S. Department of Justice on Friday announced a settlement with Texas Children's Hospital, in which the hospital not only committed to never again carry out gender transition procedures on minors, but also agreed to open the nation's first detransitioner clinic and fully fund it for 5 years. The hospital, TCH, gained notoriety in 2023 when a whistleblower provided evidence, I remember this, I think we reported on this at the time, that the hospital continued to secretly administer gender transition hormones to minors even after the Texas legislature had made it illegal. Yeah, it was a doctor that came out and blew the whistle on this, and then he got targeted. It's always what happens, isn't it? Today's resolution protects vulnerable children, holds providers accountable, and ensures those harmed receive the care that they need. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said, Justice Department will use every weapon at its disposal to enter the destructive and discredited practice of so-called gender-affirming care for children. Under the settlement, TCH Hospital will pay $10 million to cover its fraudulent billing of Texas Medicaid. By coding gender transition procedures as completely different procedures, a practice exposed by whistleblower Ethan Haim. Yeah, I don't remember if that was the doctor or if that's somebody else. Settlement also requires TCH to fire and irrevocably terminate hospital privileges for 5 doctors who carried out the illegal procedures on minors. Agree to never again provide gender transition services, amend its bylaws so that any doctor who carries out gender transition procedures on minors automatically relinquishes his or her privileges and implement other compliance and ethical measures, according to the Texas Attorney General's office. So, wow. That's pretty interesting, huh? That one's on Daily Signal. Okay, let's look at the SIFT. This is a site that I usually mention. I get their email updates once a day or several times a week or whatever it is. Drug overdose deaths decline for a third year. Fewer than 70,000 people died of drug overdose deaths in 2025. I don't know if I buy that. Do you guys? According to the data released by the Center for Disease Creation on Wednesday, the numbers of drug overdose deaths in the United States has steadily declined since 2023 when over 106,000 died. 106,000 died. So now they're saying 70, down from 106,000. The national rate of drug overdose deaths is now similar to pre-pandemic rates in 2019. Well, I hope that's true, but who knows? I mean, it is a CDC number, so I sort of have my doubts, but hoping that it is true. Mayor says 6 found dead in Texas boxcar died of heat stroke. Wow. I wonder if those were illegals. 6 people whose remains were discovered May 10th in a boxcar in Laredo, Texas, all died of heat stroke. Medical examinations indicated they died hours before the train car entered Laredo. Temperatures in that area hit 97 degrees Fahrenheit the day that they were discovered. The group included 4 men, 1 woman, and a 14-year-old boy. 3 people were from Mexico, 3 from Honduras, likely entered the boxcar in Del Rio, Texas, and then made their way to Laredo, but died because of the heat. He said that Rodriguez also said that a 7th person on Monday was found dead near railroad tracks in San Antonio. Man. Yeah. So all that to say that I know I have said multiple times on this show that one thing, maybe perhaps that you can count certainly on one hand the number of things that Trump has done right since he's gotten into office. One of those I have maintained up to this point is that he had secured the border. He closed the border. But in fact, I found out on Friday that is not the case, that there are now hundreds of people coming back illegally into the border. I don't know if that's weekly or daily, but there are a lot of people coming back in again. Basically, Trump has taken his foot off the gas, as it were. And for whatever reason, they are bringing back the Trump administration. I don't know if he knows this and they're just doing this behind his back, perhaps. I don't know. But Trump, his administration is bringing back some of the Biden border officials, little by little. And they're slowly opening up the border again, even while Trump is currently president. Hundreds of people are escaping from wherever they are in the world back into the United States. So I thought that was really interesting. I found that out on Friday, and I will see what else I can find on that. I do know one site that we can look at for more information on that, but I just find that to be really amazing, actually. But then again, it's not really that surprising, is it? It is Trump we're talking about here. It just goes from bad to worse with that guy. Oh, yeah. I want to mention this one. This came out a few days ago. Divers just so happened to find underwater IED at critical Alabama dam in Mobile. FBI bomb squad and law enforcement teams from Mobile area on Wednesday removed and safely detonated an improvised explosive device at the Converse Reservoir Dam. The 3,600-acre reservoir supplies drinking water for the Mobile area. Both the reservoir and the dam are federally designated as critical infrastructure, according to the Mobile area water and sewer system. Divers located the device, a grenade type, underwater during routine maintenance. The Mobile Water Authority quickly alerted the local sheriff's office, which coordinated with law enforcement response. The IED was removed without damaging the dam, and the drinking water was not affected. The Mobile area water and sewer system wrote in a news release. The Water Authority reported the incident to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Said that it would work to increase the security at the dam. Officials did not say how long the IED had been in place. Yeah, who knows? But they can set these things up as, remote detonating type. They can detonate them remotely, is what I'm trying to say. And perhaps that's the way it was set up, or perhaps not. It's hard to say, but they did explode it, so apparently it was a real IED, to some degree at least, and could have done considerable damage. So for whatever reason, it didn't work when they tried it, or they hadn't actually hit the button to detonate it yet remotely. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, we will see what happens. So that one is a SIFT article. So that one's on WNG.org. This is a pretty interesting site. This is something that we generally will find some interesting bit of news on. So this is on RT.com, which I know it's basically mainstream news as far as that goes. But still, I feel like it's a little more honest, perhaps, than the U.S. mainstream media. This is on Russia Today, is what it's called, but they abbreviated it. It's now just RT. RT. Putin to visit China as well. Wow. Probably not at the same time that Trump and them are there. Actually, I think they're back now. Okay, yeah, here's this article about, I think this is the one where the car, it's the car, it wasn't a human driving it, it's just the car. The car decided to ram into people. Dozens injured after car rams into people in Italy. How about that headline? No, it was a crazy person who got behind the wheel who did it. It wasn't the car that did it. It didn't just decide to start running into people. Just like the knife that he was holding when he started stabbing people, the knife didn't just start stabbing people. The driver, described in the press as a man of North African descent, reportedly went on to stab someone before being subdued. At least 12 people have sustained injuries and 4 reportedly in critical condition after a car rammed into them at the Italian city of Modena. The driver, described by the media as a highly intoxicated man of North African descent, was reportedly armed with a knife and stabbed a person before being subdued by bystanders. While the motive remains unclear at the time, terrorism is not being ruled out. Do you think? Yeah, well, we wouldn't want to admit that it might be terrorism. I mean, after all, it is people from North Africa, and we know what religion that generally means. Not always, but usually, especially when you get behind the wheel of a vehicle and start running over people. Anyway, yeah. It's interesting that he was intoxicated, though, because generally Muslims aren't necessarily drinkers, from what I understand. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. Deadly virus outbreak kills 65 in DR Congo. How about that? Of 20 samples tested, 13 have been confirmed positive as officials warn of possible regional Ebola spread. Uh-oh, here we go. We're breaking out the Ebola. The rat virus just wasn't enough. It wasn't scary enough. So now they're going to bring back the Ebola. Gosh. Yeah, that makes sense. 65 deaths reported so far. I'm surprised they haven't tried the Ebola thing worldwide yet. Maybe this is the beginning. I don't know. Democratic Republic of Congo, right? DR Congo. Yeah. According to preliminary results from the National Institute for Biomedical Research, 13 out of 20 test samples came back positive for Ebola. Health officials are also investigating suspected infections in the city of Bunia, although those cases have not yet been confirmed. So yeah, Congo, DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and Southern Sudan are part of the same area. So, wow. Will they try and pull the old Ebola card? That's the question. Because I don't think too many people are afraid of the hantavirus or the hantavirus, or however you say it. I mean, I grew up in Indiana, so I would pronounce it as the hantavirus. That's the way it looks. I took phonics, I remember. The spoiled prince of Kiev, Zelensky, has deceived and ruined his country with Western help. He sure has. Although he's just a puppet. It's the EU and Biden administration and Trump as well, and it's not just him. Iranian drone strike on the UAE ignites fire near nuclear plant. No radiation leak reported. Wow. Looks like something out of Star Wars or something, doesn't it? To launch missile and drone attacks at nuclear power plants is the ultimate irresponsibility. Yeah, well, Ukraine did that for a long time. They still are. The ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, fragile as it is, still holds, but in the meantime, the UAE and Iran have been exchanging strikes back and forth. The UAE and Iran. In a show of instability in the Middle East. Today, it arises that a drone strike sparked a fire near UAE's Baraka nuclear plant. Emirati officials say that no injuries or radiation leaks have been reported. Let's hope not. So drone strikes near a nuke plant. So smart. So smart. Communist Cuba stockpiling drones amid fears of potential U.S. military action. I've heard that Cuba is on the verge of collapse. Let's look at that one. That'll be the last one from Gateway Pundit for tonight. Again, I may go through this and find a few more things and put them in the Substack post. Won't necessarily cover them in the video tonight, in the live stream tonight. Communist Cuba has reportedly expanded its military drone capabilities and is seeking additional equipment from Russia and Iran as the communist regime prepares for the possibility of direct confrontation with the United States. That makes sense, because our troops are not spread thin enough already, huh? According to classified intelligence cited by Axios, Cuban officials have acquired more than 300 military drones of varying capabilities since 2023 and have held discussions about how such systems could be used in the event of hostilities with Washington, as we say in Indiana, Washington. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that there would need to be hostilities, but I guess they're planning for it. At least the Cubans are. Potential targets discussed include the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, American military vessels, and possibly even locations in southern Florida, including Key West. Wow. Report comes amid escalating tensions between Washington and Havana, with the Trump administration viewing Cuba as a growing security concern due to its military cooperation with hostile powers and its collapsing energy and core infrastructure. Yeah. The regime has suffered massively in the wake of the Trump administration's capture of Maduro, with Caracas effectively forced to cut ties with its communist ally. Yep, that is true. There's a bit more information here on that, but I don't know. That's not good, though, that that could be yet another place to get the military involved, but at this point, who knows? I would not be that surprised, especially if it looks like Cuba is indeed going to collapse. If that's really true, then I guess anything's possible, really. All right, let's look at a few Substacks. We've got some of the normal ones here. Wine Press is one of the main ones that I usually look at. We started, one of the intro videos tonight was about Sebastian Gorka here that we're seeing in the middle of the page. He's also affectionately known as the Gay Whale. And that's probably enough said on that. That's his nickname. I don't think he necessarily likes that nickname, but that is his nickname, the Gay Whale. Trump's counterterrorism official, Sebastian Gorka, says Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes are terrorists. Yeah, we played those clips earlier. Says anti-Israel speech is terrorism. We are going to map out these individuals, he says. We're going to identify them. We're going to find the money trail. The money trail is the most important thing. Yeah, he's saying that Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, he's not quite calling for their arrest, but he might as well be. Saying that they don't get to have free speech. Because their free speech don't agree with his free speech. And the Gay Whale gets to decide who's free and who's not. That's a Wine Press Substack. I'll make a note of that one. This one will make Bibi very happy. Musk's X agrees to censor anti-Semitic, illegal hate, and terror content in the UK following the terrorist attack. There will be a lot more to do, though X is failing in so many regards to tackle open racism on its platform, said the CEO of Anti-Semitism Policy Trust. Another avenue of censorship on social media is being installed in the United Kingdom. Musk's X reportedly agreed to crack down on some content on the platform following a purported anti-Semitic terrorist attack versus just a normal terrorist attack, I guess. In a statement by Office Communications, Ofcom, that's their big censorship organization over there, X has made the following public statements to better protect UK users from illegal hate and terror content, which Ofcom has today accepted. So in other words, Musk must have gotten threatened by a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit, or perhaps the inability to continue using his platform in their countries. I don't know. I'm not sure what the backroom deal was, but you can bet there was some threat involved, to which he is capitulating. Expedited timescales for reviewing illegal hate and terror content. That was point one here. Number two, engaging with experts regarding reporting systems for illegal hate and terror content. And number three, action against accounts operated by or on behalf of proscribed organizations. Unless it's Israel that does it, in which case it's fine because it's Israel. They can do it. It's okay. I think we mentioned last week that there was a refinery in, I think Louisiana last week, that went up in flames. And here's another one. Another one did as well right after that. Another U.S. refinery goes up in flames. 45 major refinery explosions and fires reported over the last month and a half. This one was in Oklahoma, in case you missed it. On Monday, May 11th, firefighters in Tulsa responded to a fire at the H.F. Sinclair refinery, with dramatic video showing massive flames and thick black smoke rising from the facility. Officials have not yet determined the cause of the fire. They never do they? And when they do we ever even hear what that is? And how come there aren't cameras catching people creating the fires, if that's what's going on? It's like all the, some of the farm-related things that were blowing up and burning down and all that stuff as well, affecting the ability to have certain types of meat or food production type things being targeted as well, especially during the Biden administration, which that may still be happening too, although we don't hear about that as much. So this one was another U.S. refinery that happened. That's 2 in the last really just few days at this point. This one looks really interesting, but it's highly anti-Semitic, so we cannot recommend it. But it's called Not of Abraham, Irrefutable Evidence for the Real Ashkenazi Origin Story. The real Ashkenazi origin story. It's been rumored for hundreds of years that the Ashkenazi are not really ethnic relatives of Abraham. Here's a 5-point explainer for why that's absolutely the case, according to this clearly anti-Semitic person here. Says, for centuries there's been credible and widespread doubts that the Ashkenazi are really the genetic lineage of Abraham, if for no other reason the Ashkenazi themselves didn't start to allege it until after claims of an ancient ancestral land deed became a central justification for the establishment of a Jewish ethno-state in Palestine. I've said for years that all signs point to the Ashkenazi not being Semitic. That one theory stands out to me as the most likely explanation for their origin, but have remained non-committal. After all, historic Christianity rejects the notion of covenant entitlements outside of faith in Jesus. So why does it matter? But while researching Abraham's posterity for my articles on Noah's prophecy to Japheth, I discovered irrefutable evidence never before published that points to one theory in particular that undeniably and irrefutably shows where the Ashkenazi origin story starts, I guess. From Revelation 3:9, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. That's from Revelation 3:9. Yeah, we've heard that scripture before, huh? So anyway, a deep dive here, I guess, into the whole Ashkenazi idea. Notice the Ashkenazi have the word Nazi in them. I wonder if they're anti-Semitic too. That's highly ironic, isn't it? You ever notice that? That Ashkenazi has the word Nazi in it? Did they even notice that? I don't know. They probably did. They're so smart. All right, that one is on Insight to Insight. Let me grab that link. Why Ancient Aliens is the dumbest psyop ever invented. Ancient Aliens, Aleister Crowley, and why you should probably buy a rifle. It's got the Lego guys here. Let's look at that one. The History Channel has been airing Ancient Aliens since approximately the Paleolithic era. At least it feels that long. The show premiered in 2009, which means we are now 15 years into Giorgio Tsoukalos explaining that literally everything in human history was built by aliens. That's true, yes. He does seem to lean that way. The pyramids, ? Aliens, Stonehenge, aliens. Your grandmother's suspiciously perfect apple pie, probably aliens. I used to think this show was fascinating back when I was a secular idiot who didn't believe in God because I fell for the satanic psyop. It turned everything into a clown world disaster. I would watch episode after episode and nod along like it all made perfect sense. Of course, the Nazca lines were alien landing strips. What else could they possibly be? Ceremonial pathways for religious rituals, but who has time for boring archaeological consensus when you can have aliens? Then I started actually reading the source material for these people that they keep citing, Zechariah Stitchin's books. Yes, that's a good point. Specifically, for those unfamiliar, Stitchin was the guy who claimed to translate ancient Sumerian texts and discover that humanity was created by aliens called the Anunnaki to mine gold for them. We were, according to Stitchin, literally engineered to be slave labor for extraterrestrial overlords. Here's the problem. Actual scholars who can read Sumerian, not self-taught hobbyists with a theory to sell, have looked at Stitchin's translations and determined they are, to use the technical academic term, completely made up. Michael Heiser, who had a PhD in Hebrew Bible and ancient Semitic languages, spent years debunking Stitchin's work point by point. Turns out, when you actually know how to read ancient Sumerian, the texts say nothing about alien genetic engineering programs. They say a lot about gods and creation myths and flood narratives, but nothing about Nibiru or ancient astronauts. Well, there's that. So Stitchin was either deliberately lying or so incompetent at translation that his work is useless. Either way, the entire foundation of the ancient alien theory is built on fabricated evidence, but the show keeps airing and airing and airing. My dad is obsessed with ancient aliens, completely obsessed. He watches every episode multiple times. He has theories. He has ideas. He's convinced, and I am not making this up, that he himself might be an ancient alien. I have a different theory, he says. This is from the Wise Wolf Substack, not myself. But yeah, that's a good point. I have the Lego pictures here of Aleister Crowley and Lamb, which is the gray-looking alien dude. What did Crowley summon during his magical workings? He drew detailed pictures of an entity he called Lamb, L-A-M. Go look up the drawing. I'll wait. So anyway, there's a lot here, but it's pretty funny. Yeah, Ancient Aliens is definitely not something I'm into at all. It is interesting, but they only give you just a small portion of the truth, and everything else is completely made up BS, if you ask me. And by BS, I mean Barbra Streisand, or Bruce Springsteen, or Ben Shapiro. BS. Behind the scenes chaos at Trump-Xi summit. Trampled aide, shoving matches, and locked in reporters. I'll have to look at that one. Multiple physical confrontations occurred during Trump's summit with Xi Jinping on Thursday. Incidents included a White House aide trampled by Chinese journalists, a Secret Service agent barred from entering events, and American reporters locked in a side room and prevented from joining the presidential motorcade. The disruptions were captured by a cameraman accompanying film director Brett Ratner, who is scouting locations for Rush Hour 4. That's funny. One member of the U.S. delegation was overheard calling the scene a Shiite show. The New York Post reported tensions underscored the difficulties of coordinating a high-stakes diplomatic visit between two rival superpowers amid intense security and media control efforts by Chinese authorities. The first flashpoint occurred when an aggressive Chinese press corps charged into Trump's morning bilateral meeting with Xi. According to witnesses cited by the Post, in the rush, the White House advance team member was knocked down and stepped on. The aide was bruised and shaken, but not seriously injured, and the incident prompted loud protests from her colleagues about the Chinese media's behavior. So it was a female. Those sexist Chinese people, I guess. Ratner's cameraman documented the incident. The Post reported the episode added to a pattern of friction that U.S. officials said reflected Beijing's determination to control the visual narrative of the summit, even at the cost of physical confrontations. The incident was among several that led one delegation member to privately describe the day as a Shiite show, according to an overheard remark. Secret Service stand-up at Temple of Heaven. At the Temple of Heaven, a 15th century imperial site, Chinese officials refused entry to a Secret Service agent carrying a firearm. Standard practice for the protective agency, according to Pool reports. The standoff lasted about 30 minutes. Well, that one's not really that surprising, I don't think. Press pool detained and motorcade blocked. After the temple tour, American journalists were taken to a holding room and shut in. Well, all this to say, really, seriously, welcome to communism. I mean, that's what, did they forget that China is, last time I checked, fully communist. That's why they call it Red China. I don't know. Maybe they forgot about that. I'm not really that surprised. I did post Mike Adams' discussion on AI data centers that I had mentioned last week. I did put that in last week's Substack post. So if you missed that, make sure you watch that interview. It was really good, where he goes into some discussion about AI, world simulations, and so forth. I think this is yet another version of that, which we'll link to this one too. And we will link to it in this week's Substack. This is a video on Brighteon. It's called Digital Gods. Mike joins Maria Z to discuss AI world simulations, data centers, and digital control. So that's going to be very similar to that other video that I mentioned last week. But I think it's worth a consideration, just because he goes down some roads that I've never heard anyone else really talk about. And I think that's important to get that perspective as well. So anyway, those are natural news and Brighteon articles and videos. This is one of the ones that I wanted to mention. Demonstration shows the current populist movement is a global rise against power. Special report, the UK awakens. Well, let's hope so. I don't know that it's going to matter. British activist Tommy Robinson led a massive march with millions of UK citizens standing up to the foreign invasion of their country and the tyrannical globalist policies of Keir Starmer. Yeah, well, it's Starmer, but it's really King Charles III. The sleeping giant has awoken. I wish that were true, and maybe it is true to a certain extent, but I don't know. I just don't see things changing. I would love to be wrong about that. Jaw-dropping footage. Elon Musk reacts as over 1 million people march in the UK. That was this weekend. Against the tyranny of pedo protector Keir Starmer. They'll probably arrest Tommy Robinson, quote unquote. And they always arrest Tommy Robinson. Huge. Thousands of British march towards Parliament Square for the Unite the Kingdom rally organized by Tommy. Let me see if this will play and not be too crazy. Let's see what happens. So, pretty amazing. And luckily the bridge did not collapse. So yeah, there's some speeches embedded here. Here's a drone shot. Wow. Thousands are marching towards Parliament Square in London right now. This was yesterday, I think, for the Unite the Kingdom March. Look at this. That's all people. That's crazy. Tommy Robinson's rally protesting immigration and calling for national unity. So the good news is, yes, the people are awakening, and yes, they can find each other here in amongst the crowds these days when they can, get together like this. But the bad news is there's, when they all go home, it just goes back to the way it was before. Nothing really changes. Not as far as I can tell. I hate that, but that does seem to be the case. Mega bombshell. Acting AG Todd Blanche, says several criminal investigations underway regarding the rigged 2020 elections. Tons of evidence the Dems cheated. No kidding. Well, there always has been. But I don't know that it will matter. But the WHO drums up Ebola fear. Oh, here we go. I just mentioned this. I didn't even know about this. The World Homicide Organization drums up Ebola fears after hantavirus scare fails. Even if there was a legitimate biological threat, no one is going to trust a corrupt organization like the WHO to solve the problem. Yeah, no kidding. One of the biggest mistakes globalists made in their bid for perpetual medical authoritarianism during the COVID pandemic was reveling a bit too much. Numerous high-level officials from the WEF, the WHO, the Imperial College of London, and an army of politicians were giddy with excitement and bragged publicly about all the power they were going to grab as the masses huddled in fear of a virus with a 99.8% average survival rate. And I'm in that percentage of people that believe that there was never a virus, because there didn't need to be a virus. But I digress. This arrogance cost them, triggering an awakening of millions of former skeptics who are now avid conspiracy theorists, quote unquote. Today, the ability of the elite class to sucker the populace into a new pandemic theater is greatly reduced. No one believes them anymore, and even if there was a legitimate biological threat, no one is going to trust a corrupt organization like the WHO to solve the problem. We have to see the consequences of the COVID farce with the recent hantavirus scare, which has failed to inspire any noticeable reaction from the public. As we noted a few days ago, the WHO has been exposed as a perpetrator of pandemic disinformation and is no longer trusted by the public. So here's a video of Tedros talking here. It almost looks like he's talking in front of the, I don't know if it is, the King Charles. No, it's probably not. It's probably something with the Spain. I don't know. Not sure what he's standing in front of. It almost looks like the King Charles crest there, but it may not be. The U.S. under the Trump administration has exited the organization on these grounds, and as a result, the WHO has lost at least 20% of its total funding. It's now facing dire financial conditions. Oh, I doubt that, don't you? I mean, they always have Bill Gates to fall back to. In response, the UN and establishment media have been running a spin campaign to present the WHO as indispensable. That's not the word I would use. I don't know about you guys. Anyway, that is on AJ's site. Alex Jones Live. Okay, let's look at some of these Daily Crow articles that I had found. Some that I pulled up yesterday when I was just perusing the news, and wanted to mention them tonight. Let's see how you guys are doing here before we get too far involved. Yeah, we got a lot of comments. Looks like you guys are doing okay. No issues, it doesn't appear to be. I'm liking the new live streaming software. I do think it's working fine. I don't think the Rumble chat is working quite yet, but I didn't have time to troubleshoot that yet. Test. Let me do a quick test in the chat for Rumble. I don't think it's showing up in my comments I can put on screen yet, though. It doesn't appear to be. Do a little testing here live. Sometimes the only way to... Nope, it's not working quite yet. Sometimes the only way to test these things is to actually do them during a live stream. Otherwise, it's really hard to know if something's going to work or not. But the Rumble chat, theoretically, the Rumble chat should be able to be put on the screen like the YouTube comments are as well. But at the moment, there's not that many people chatting in Rumble anyway. It's just me saying test. So anyway, but we'll get back to that at some point. Hopefully we can get that one figured out. But the chats from Facebook and YouTube do work if you're on either one of those platforms and you type into chat. It does show up here on my screen over there on the side. Mostly it's people watching on YouTube. So, but anyways, I just wanted to mention that. And let's keep going here. Trump says a new drug can bring dead people back to life. We've taken people that were dead and the person became better. It works. That's the quote. I kid you not. Because I saw this and I'm like, you have got to be joking. On Monday, during a routine press event, Trump casually made an announcement that in any normal White House would have kicked off days of frenzied coverage, either about a revelatory inflection point in the history of medicine or about the mental wellness of the country's chief executive. I think in this case it would probably be that last thing, don't you? The president's apparent claim, that an unnamed new drug can bring patients back from the dead. This is an article on futurism.com. It's not just some little website somewhere. Futurism is a pretty well-known site. We've taken people that were dead, Trump fomented. We had a person given the last rites, gone. The kids are crying and everything. and started them on this drug, and the person became better. It works. You think we're joking? Here is the clip.
Years, 10 years, by the way, we think we've cut it in half, but you do need a period of time. Without waiting many, many years, we know the drug works because we've taken people that were dead. We had a person given the last rites, gone. The kids are crying, and started them on this drug, and the person became better. It works, and some don't work. But you learn really fast. It's called the ultimate test, I think, right? They test all these things. They use animals all over the place. They use everything to test. Person's going to die. So,
how about that? So Trump can bring people back from the dead. Well, I don't know if he can, but can you imagine? During both Trump's stints in office, America has become exhaustingly accustomed to an extremely well-documented barrage of lies and untruths that are remarkable even by the already low standards of the average politician. The president's representatives often tries to spin the fibs in outrageous ways. Perhaps dead didn't mean dead, they might argue, but was simply the president's colorful way of saying somebody was very sick. In the end, the layers upon layers of untruths just become an impenetrable miasma of post-truth bloviation. In the case of the supposed miracle pharmaceutical this week, rewind the full video far enough. For added bonus, watch the face of Administrator for Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Mehmet Oz, who's standing in the background as this whole thing goes down, and you can vaguely reconstruct how the line ended up coming out of Trump's voluble mouth. He'd been talking about the Right to Try Act, a bit of legislation passed during his first administration that allows terminally ill patients to attempt long-shot treatments that would normally be seen as too risky or under-tested. But in typical Trump fashion, the president seems to have taken the idea of a very sick patient suddenly improving, which is rare but does occasionally happen, and exaggerated it into such a ludicrous degree that it sounded like the plot to a zombie movie. It's also worth noting that, as with much of Trump's political storytelling, the actual track record of the Right to Try Act is hotly disputed. The Stat reported in, I guess that's a magazine, The Stat, reported in 2024, patients already had the option to opt for experimental treatments before this was passed, though the new law did undermine their right to legal recourse if they were preyed upon by quack doctors in that highly vulnerable moment of their lives. So that's really all there is on this, but it's maybe not exactly as Trump says and thinks it is, which, is that really very surprising? It's not, is it? But yeah, he's claiming that a new drug can bring people back from the dead. Or maybe perhaps not. Okay, this one is loading, and it's a substantial 86-page PDF document. And I came across this, we'll link to this in the Substack post, from the U.S. Department of Justice, Washington, D.C., received by NSD/FARA, F-A-R-A, back in September last year. Exhibit A to registration statement pursuant to the Foreign Agent Registration Act. That's FARA. Foreign Agents Registration Act of 1938 as amended, which people are saying, that Israel needs to be a FARA, a Foreign Agents Registration Act. They need to be part of that as well, but nope, they're not. They're the 51st state. But anyway, no, what I wanted to point out here in this document was, let me scroll down. I believe it's page 30. Let's see where it starts. There's a list of churches on here. Probably starts on page 33. Let me look. No, 34. There's a list of churches on here starting in Arizona and going through alphabetically, going at least through Texas. We'll look here. There's a lot of churches, and these are churches that will be receiving the they're calling it the 10-7 experience. The mobile 10-7 experience. Mobile 10-7 experience has to do with the October 7th Hamas invasion of Israel, which of course was a stand down. We all know that. But yeah, they're getting ready to do a mobile 10-7 experience, is what they're calling it. And they will be geofencing anybody and everybody's phones going into and out of these churches. So let's start here. I'm not going to read all the churches because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But you can see here that there is a list starting on page 34 of the churches who will be, to some degree, sponsoring this event, the 10-7 experience. So if you are a member of a church in Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Texas, there's a lot of Texas, Utah, a couple of them there, Wyoming, there's one, California, there's a bunch. Make sure you look at this list because you don't want to have your phone to be geofenced by Israel, because that's what's going to happen. So this is a pretty important document. If you guys want to follow up, if you live in any of those states I just mentioned, Tennessee's not on here. I didn't see anything from Tennessee listed. Could have missed it, but there's a lot of Texas churches. So if your church is on here, just know that they are going to be working directly with Israel on this 10-7 experience. And therefore, if you are going to church at this time when they have the 10-7 experience, your phone will be geofenced and targeted, data collected to some degree by Israel. I don't know the dates, but you could just go by whenever the dates of the 10-7 experience will be. So I just wanted to point this out just because I hadn't really seen this anywhere else. But this is an actual FARA.gov document, and it lists the churches. Now, what we don't know is this document is dated 9/27/25. They could have added more churches. We don't know. This is the only document I could find on this. So pretty wild, huh? And this whole thing about the 10-7 experience is listed here on this document. It goes into quite a bit of detail. And just know that is available, though. So pretty wild, huh? Crazy. Yeah, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. Anyway, I wanted to mention that one just because I figured some of you guys live in some of those states and you might want to pay attention to it if you don't want your phone geofenced, data collected by Israel. It says, after fantastic day with Xi, Trump touts 200-jet Boeing deal as China offers Hormuz help. Trump says Boeing secured a 200 big jet order from China. So remember, I mentioned at the beginning or near the beginning of the show, all of those different executives from the different massive companies that were accompanying Trump on this trip. So it just so happens that Boeing secured a 200 big jet order from China while they were over there. Wonder how much of that Trump gets to pocket. Trump says President Xi wants Hormuz reopened. He wants it reopened and won't give Tehran weapons. Trump and Xi put Hormuz, Iran, trade, and Taiwan at the center of the historic Beijing summit. So this is dated a couple days ago, but it's got a few more details that some of the other articles I saw did not. This is on Zero Hedge. It is nearly midnight in Beijing. Trump is still speaking on the record with corporate media, offering additional insight on the first day of the summit, the state banquet with Xi. In comments to Fox News, Trump said Xi offered to help pressure Iran to reopen the strait, signaling that Beijing may be willing to use its leverage over Tehran. Yeah, I think there were some other things that came up, though, about Taiwan. Let me see if that's mentioned here. Because Xi was really pressuring, trying to get a straight answer out of Trump on whether or not U.S. would help Taiwan if China invaded. He wanted a "no, we'll stand down" saying from Trump, but Trump didn't give it to him. So, yeah. Beijing also signaled interest in buying more U.S. oil to reduce China's reliance on crude and crude products transiting the Hormuz choke point. This signifies how the U.S.-Iran conflict is rewiring global energy flows. Trump-Xi talks also covered fentanyl, securing market access for U.S. companies in the mainland market, and increasing Chinese investment in American industries and purchases of U.S. agricultural products. American enterprises are deeply involved in China's reform and opening up, a process from which both sides have benefited, Xi told the leaders of U.S. companies accompanying Trump on the trip. Those CEOs included Musk, Tim Cook, Boeing's CEO, and NVIDIA's Jensen Huang. Yeah. And I bet they had the time of their lives. On the subject of Taiwan, Xi told Trump bluntly that Sino-U.S. relations, meaning China, I guess, China-U.S. relations would enter an extremely dangerous place if Trump ignored Beijing's demands over Taiwan. Meaning, I think, stand down if we invade. I think that's the demands. So I don't know if Trump would do that or if he would help Taiwan. I have no idea. There's no way to know, and it probably just depends on the day and what mood he's in, honestly. Overall, it appears that day one of Trump's summit with Xi was positive. Yeah, so that's all over and they're back and done now. So anyway, that's a zero hedge piece. And then here's another futurism. New data center equivalent to setting off 23 nuclear bombs per day. Professor finds. Unfathomable. So, yeah, you heard me right. New data center equivalent to setting off 23 nuclear bombs per day. That's the heat generated. A proposed hyperscale data center in Box Elder County, Utah, will create an enormous heat island that could devastate the area's ecology, according to experts' analysis. Dubbed the Stratus Project and backed by the celebrity venture capitalist Kevin O'Leary, the sprawling facility will devour up to 9 gigawatts of energy, its developers say, which is more than double the electricity used by the entire state. Yeah, it's going to devour 9 gigawatts of energy. I guess that's, what, per year? That epic energy bill comes with another cost, albeit the kind that won't show up on the developer's books. On top of the 9 gigawatts of power, the facility will produce another 7 to 8 gigawatts of energy in the form of waste heat, according to Robert Davies, a physics professor at Utah State University, who shared his calculations with the Salt Lake Tribune. That brings its entire thermal load to a jaw-dropping 16 gigawatts. That's a lot of heat. Exacerbating the issue, the Stratus project is anticipated to use on-site gas-powered generators that run round the clock, allowing the facility to operate off the local grid. A common modus operandi for large-scale data centers that need a way to quickly secure huge amounts of electricity. The problem, however, is that this concentrates all the waste heat into the same area when it's typically dispersed far from the power plant itself. At the homes and businesses it sends power to. And that area, in the case of the Stratus project, is the Hansel Valley, which already acts as a bowl for trapping air. So here's the key here. The magnitude of the disruption is difficult to comprehend. In a jaw-dropping illustration, Davies calculated that the project would be the equivalent of about 23 atomic bombs worth of energy dumped into this local environment every single day. 23 atomic bombs. The heat signature from 23 atomic bombs per day dropped in this area. That's how much heat these things are going to produce. That's just in one of these data centers. Could you imagine? Man. Total insanity. Do we really need more data centers? Well, the answer, of course, is no, but we're getting them anyway. That's apparently the way it's happening. Man. But yeah, that kind of really helps illustrate, I think, how bad these things are. This one is another science type of website called Singularity Hub. In the scramble to power AI, investors bet $140 million on data centers at sea. So you've heard of the data centers in the middle of cities, like the one being proposed in Utah, and then also obviously out in the countrysides where it's swallowing up all of the local, aquifers and water, local water, and then also using all the energy in the local power grids. You hear about those, but this is a new one. I hadn't heard about this one. So not only are they going to have all the heat there in all of those places across the U.S., now they're going to have another one. Another idea, I guess, is to power some of these data centers at floating data centers at sea. Far from shore, the server farms will be powered by waves cooled by seawater and networked by satellite. So what could possibly go wrong in the already overheated oceans that Mr. Dane talks about all the time? So this is just an example, I guess. Ocean 2 sea-based data center prototype. So I don't know if this might even just be an AI type of picture. I have no idea. But that's kind of what they look like. They look like those radar dome things. As AI demands for computing power surges, I would just add that that's not why they're doing these data centers. It's not about computing power. It's about the ability to control every aspect of every human being's life on the entire planet. That's what they want to do. So it's not about creating memes on ChatGPT. It's not that at all. As AI demand for computing power surges, companies are searching for new ways to fuel data centers. One startup is now proposing floating data centers powered by ocean waves. And they just raised $140 million to bring the idea to fruition. I think there were also some companies that were trying to put them in outer space, which that actually makes more sense. I'd be all for that one. Not really, but tech companies are planning to spend roughly $750 billion on data centers this year. But the elephant in the room is figuring out how to power these facilities. They're already straining electrical grids across the world. And the pace of the build-out is far surpassing our ability to bring new power online. This energy shortfall is leading to tech companies to invest in a series of increasingly outlandish fixes, from restarting shuttered nuclear reactors to developing novel geothermal energy technology and even launching data centers into space. There it is right there. So there's a link here for that. We may have mentioned that before. It's also a Singularity Hub article. Now, several leading Silicon Valley figures, including Palantir's Peter Thiel and Salesforce's Mark Benioff, are backing Oregon-based startup Pranthalasa. Pranthalasa sounds Indian. The startup is developing floating data centers that generate their own electricity from waves. These investors recently joined a $140 million Series B round that will allow the company to complete a pilot manufacturing facility near Portland and begin deploying the latest generation of its devices, or nodes. So they want to put these data centers out to sea, floating in the ocean, heating up the ocean. using ocean water to cool their white hot chipsets, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, that just makes total sense. Why wouldn't they? It just goes from bad to worse, doesn't it? All right. And this was a Leo Hohmann one that I did not mention earlier, so we'll mention it now. Paul Craig Roberts, the digital revolution will destroy humanity. We cannot ever say that we weren't warned. Yeah. He's talking about Paul Craig Roberts here, Leo Hohmann is, and gives some background, the fact that he worked for Reagan administration and so forth. For some years, I've been pointing out that the digital revolution, like nuclear weapons and a laboratory manufacture of deadly pathogens that governments or terrorists can release, is a disastrous development for humanity. It is true that the digital revolution has benefits such as instant messaging, video conferences, real-time access to news of events in foreign lands, real-time access to entertainment, and to live performances decades ago. The digital revolution has provided greater miles per gallon in performance from internal combustion engines, and the list goes on, but the benefits have a cost. Perhaps the high cost is the total control the digital revolution gives governments, or whatever the ruling entity is, over people. The threat goes beyond the Chinese social control system in which your rights or privileges are determined by your behavior. The digital revolution allows government to prevent the emergence of truth by substituting for truth official narratives. We witnessed the beginning of this with the orchestrated COVID pandemic. By controlling the data based on artificial intelligence, governments can produce the truths, quote unquote, truths that serve their agendas. The interconnectedness of information is more advanced than people realize. For example, the U.S. State Department just announced that the passport of any parent behind in child payments of $2,500 has a canceled passport. How does the passport office of the State Department know who in 50 states is behind in child support payments? President Trump is trying to create, with an executive order, a U.S. passport with a digital facial recognition without which a citizen cannot have a bank account, vote, or have a driving license, or for that matter, do anything. Anything. Digital currency is the greatest threat, perhaps, to human autonomy. Digital currency, unlike fiat paper currency or gold and silver coins, cannot be locked in a safe or buried on your grounds. It exists electronically only, and you can be denied access to it if you displease the ruling authority. This neutralizes all opposition from the people. A multi-billionaire suddenly finds that he cannot pay his electric bill. Yeah, if he says the wrong thing, for sure. Anyway, yeah, it goes on. There's more here. Talking about how this electronic system is surely going to be taking over everything. I don't know about you, but I would love to see the digital revolution deep-sixed. In the analog days, there were no problems that would use up your morning or afternoon and force you to spend 36 minutes, as I spent yesterday afternoon, to reach a human capable of thought and resolution of the problem. The digital age is a plague upon humanity. The moronic fools who brought us this digital revolution are wallowing in profits, but they too will be devoured by their creation. He's not wrong, at least not ultimately. Yeah, and then he had this one as well on his own website, which I didn't know he was still publishing to this site necessarily, but I thought it was significant. Euphrates River is drying up, which we've heard that before, but it seems to be even more so than we thought. Just as Bible prediction would happen before Armageddon. Water levels on the Euphrates are dropping fast and have reached historically low levels. This worrying drought has sparked fears that a biblical end times prophecy could be in the process of being fulfilled. Breaking news that proves we are living in the end times, as I like to say. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, water levels in the Euphrates have now dropped to one of the lowest points ever recorded. As the river continues to dry up, A debate has emerged online as some are questioning whether this signals the end times as prophesied in Revelation, or is simply further evidence of so-called climate change. While I am not averse to the concept of climate change, I do not believe the climate change is caused by human activity. Leo does apparently not. He must not know about geoengineering, because that's human activity. Anyway, it goes on. The shrinking Euphrates, Western Asia's longest river, flows through Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. Cuts through one of the Bible's most important regions, the Fertile Crescent.
People died of the flu the last year. I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
The number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
During an explosive Senate Homeland Security hearing, 20-year CIA veteran James Erdman dropped devastating testimony exposing the federal government's alleged cover-up of COVID-19's lab origins.
Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional. Dr. Fauci influenced the analytical process and findings by leveraging his position to ensure the IC consulted with a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists. The BSEG scientists influenced national laboratory WMD research, policy decisions, finished analysis, and other intelligence matters, creating misaligned incentives and conflicts of interest, as well as counterintelligence issues.
Chairman Rand Paul led the charge while the Democrats boycotted entirely.
Peter Daszak received hundreds of millions of dollars from the U.S. government and worked with Dr. Xi also on these gain-of-function experiments. Daszak was even sent to China with the WHO to investigate the origins of COVID. So the very scientists that were commissioned to investigate COVID were, in some cases, the very scientists who were complicit in the origins of the gain-of-function experiments that may well have created COVID. The intelligence community pays researchers to review work and write papers. NIH funds their grants. The CIA then consults them and gives them access to classified information. The national academies publish their work. Policymakers then cite the result as a consensus. But it's a circle. At the center of the government side of this circle was Dr. Anthony Fauci. During COVID, intelligence officials arranged for Dr. Fauci to review highly classified intelligence assessments that could not even be sent outside the White House complex. But how can Anthony Fauci objectively comment on a discussion of COVID origins when he approved the very funding that may have caused the pandemic virus?
Erdman directly accused Dr. Anthony Fauci of intentionally steering the process, leveraging his network of conflicted scientists to protect NIH-funded research and shield the truth. The result was a pandemic response built on deception, emergency authorizations for mRNA shots, and retaliation against anyone challenging the official story.
For over 20 years. In fact, several of the BSEG scientists helped Dr. Fauci rewrite definitions of gain of function in 2015 to lift a funding pause on dangerous research. Still others participated in planning Event 201 in 2019. This was a coronavirus pandemic tabletop exercise, curiously similar to the events that played out during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was attended by Dr. Fauci and individuals with IC ties like former DNI Avril Haines. The analysts that supported the 2023 lab leak conclusion took every administrative measure available to them to address their deep concerns regarding the analytic integrity of their finished intelligence. CIA managers retaliated against them for their refusal to agree with management's middle-of-the-night anonymous rewrite of the analysis, which changed the assessment to a non-call judgment.
Fauci's senior advisor, David Morenz, faces felony charges for allegedly using personal emails to conceal records on EcoHealth Alliance and Wuhan grants while dodging FOIA requests.
This is what the deep state does. I can't explain it all, my investigation now, because I finally got documents. This would never have happened if we didn't have documents. And by the way, just like we found that David Morin's email, that now has resulted in prosecution where, he has a FOIA lead, you show him how to make emails disappear. If you send me something sensitive to my Gmail, we have the same types of evidence in our report.
With Rand Paul's repeated perjury referrals and mounting evidence of obstruction, the deep state firewall is cracking. The reckoning for this crime against humanity is long overdue. John Bound, reporting for the Alex Jones Network.
Hope you enjoyed that. That was the video that I mentioned. I guess it was near the beginning of the broadcast tonight, and wanted to wait until closer to the end, just in case YouTube and so forth didn't like that one, because it was all about the CV-19 jabbies and all that stuff. But yeah, I thought that was a good one. Another Bound report. So anyways, let's pick up where we left off, and then only got a few more articles tonight. We're wrapping it up here pretty quick. So yeah, we mentioned the Euphrates and what's going on with that. So there's quite a bit of information on this. It says, let me just back up just a little. The shrinking Euphrates, Western Asia's longest river, which flows through Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, cuts through one of the Bible's most important regions, the Fertile Crescent. The waterway plays a crucial role in the book of Revelation, and a prophecy linked to its role has generated significant anxiety online as it predicts the end times and Christ's second coming. Something we like to talk about around here, don't we? Revelation 16:12 reads, "The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, to prepare the way for the kings from the east." Many believe this serves as a warning that once the Euphrates runs dry, a massive army from the east will advance across the riverbed towards the Battle of Armageddon. This verse represents the second biblical prophecy regarding the Euphrates drying up, with the first found in Jeremiah 50:38, where God proclaimed a drought on her waters. They will dry up, for it is a land of idols, idols that will go mad with terror. What is the biblical second prophecy? The second prophecy in Revelation, part of the seven bowl judgments symbolizing the end of the 7-year tribulation, is so devastating that no human being would be saved. The dwindling state of the river has left end times believers increasingly unsettled, with many convinced this ancient prophecy is unfolding before our eyes. In 2013, NASA reports revealed that both the Tigris and the Euphrates river basins, the waters of Babylon, lost a staggering 117 million acre feet, which is 34 cubic miles of fresh water between 2003 and 9. This volume of water loss is roughly on par with that of the Dead Sea, with the lion's share, 60%, due to groundwater being extracted from underground reservoirs. In bygone times, these two formidable rivers allowed farming communities to flourish, but today they are gradually drying up amid an escalating crisis. For those who steadfastly believe in biblical end times prophecy, such a development could see the prophecy come to pass within the next few decades. Maybe not decades. I'm thinking years, like 2 years. Iraq's Ministry of Water Resources has warned that without immediate action, the Euphrates River could completely dry up by 2040, with falling river water levels further exacerbated by droughts driven by climate change. Or you could add geoengineering. What risk does the Euphrates present to humans? Declining water levels and worsening water quality are also sparking a slew of additional issues, including famine and disease. Diarrhea, chickenpox, measles, typhoid fever, and cholera are currently spreading across Iraq because of the water crisis. What do you think? Yeah, I think that it is biblical and it is unfolding because we are indeed living in the end times. That's what I think. And this is yet further evidence, if you ask me. And speaking of water and drying up riverbeds and so forth, let me look at something real quick. Let's jump over here to the Goog and see. I heard this. Let's see. Hoover Dam. Go goes dark. I heard just a few days ago, Hoover Dam has gone dark. Let me see if that's true. AI says, no, it's not. It's not true. Hoover Dam has not gone completely dark. But its power generation has been severely reduced due to the historic drought and shrinking water levels at Lake Mead, which I was there at the beginning of 2025 and took some pictures of it, and the water levels were just incredibly low then. And so now this is another year and some change past that when I was there. Currently, the dam is operating at roughly half of its capacity because falling water levels have forced the shutdown of several turbines. Yeah. So you can go down and you could do a tour when you're there at Hoover Dam. You can do a tour and see the turbines and see how it works and stuff. So apparently, once the water is below the intake towers, where the water goes into the towers, then it will have to go dark at that point. And I think it's right at that level. And they've had to shut down some of the turbines already. The situation remains critical for the southwestern power grid and water supply. And so what do you do when you have a situation like this? You, of course, build more data centers. That's what you do. Makes sense, doesn't it? Current water levels. Lake Mead sits around 1,054 feet above sea level, putting it more than 160 feet below where it stood 25 years ago. Turbine shutdowns. The dam requires sufficient water pressure to safely operate its turbines. Because of declining levels, 5 of the 17 main turbines are currently offline to prevent mechanical damage. Yeah. And I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what this says. Output drop, originally producing 2,080 megawatts of electricity, enough to power about 1.3 million homes across Nevada, Arizona, and Southern California. The dam's output has dropped to between 1,000 and 1,300 megawatts. Remember, the data center, that one data center alone in Utah that they're talking about was like 8 or 9 gigawatts. This is 1,000 to 1,300 megawatts. So it's just an incredible amount of power that those data centers are going to be using up. Now, this is something that Dane talks about a lot, the Deadpool threat. If Lake Mead falls to 1,035 feet, currently sitting at 1,054 feet, according to this, 12 of the 17 turbines will be unable to function, dropping generation below 80%. If the lake level hits 895 feet, known as Deadpool, the dam will cease functioning entirely as water can no longer flow past it. So Deadpool is where it all shuts off, basically. That's about around 900 feet. So it's not all that far off. If it's currently at 1,054, saying this is right, and it only has to get to just under 900. It doesn't have that far to go, does it? Before it hits Deadpool. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because that is something that I had heard. Wanted to look it up here online. Look it up here on the live stream with you guys and see what it said. Anyways, pretty interesting, huh? Very scary stuff for you guys out west who get your power, in particular, from Hoover Dam. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to consider, or how much that's going to continue, but I guess time will tell. All right, and then I guess you knew that Trump said recently he recommended everyone celebrate Shabbat, which that's what you would say if you were a Jewish president, wouldn't you? Isaiah called it. Trump made it official on Friday night. It happened. Let's see here. Let's see what this says. The evening started with every way traditional Shabbat does. I'm looking to see what Trump said exactly about this. President Trump's call for Americans to observe Shabbat on May 15th through 16th was the first in American history. Israel 365 had spent months building the Shabbat table, a program that brings Christian families to traditional Jewish homes for an authentic Friday night experience and timed its launch to coincide with this moment. So they knew it was coming. I don't know about the Trump part, but they knew the other part was coming, obviously. This past weekend, Jewish families in 10 communities across America, in Fort Lauderdale, in Hollywood, in Atlantic Beach, in Dallas, in Nashville, in Columbus, and more, opened their doors to Christian guests for Friday night Shabbat dinner. None of this surprised the Rabbi Weiss, founder of Israel 365, this website. In his book, Universal Zionism, he argues that we are living through the third stage of Zionism, a stage in which Israel turns outward toward the nations, fulfilling the promise God made to Abraham. And then talking about Genesis 12:3 here. Prophet Isaiah saw the moment coming. I'm talking about Isaiah 56. And then last Friday in 10 cities across America, it was dinner. Early great Zionist thinker wrote that it was more than the Jews that kept the Shabbat. The Shabbat has kept the Jews. What happened last Friday suggests something more, that the table Jews have been setting for 3,000 years may be exactly what Christians need now. Is it? Is it what you need? I just need Jesus. I don't need Shabbat. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But Trump is making it official. He wants everyone to observe Shabbat because he's Jewish and apparently he does when he's eating his McDonald's on Friday night. I guess. I'm not sure how that works, but apparently that's the case. GeoWatch for this week, we have, this one's geoengineering and mass starvation. Mass starvation looms if fertilizers can't pass key waterway. The UN warns. Weather whiplash. Frosty forecast for the east while the west bakes. Record heat wave to sweep from west to east coast. Yeah, we're going to look at that. Winter to return to Colorado, Wyoming, and more. May mountain snow. Yeah, May mountain snow. I heard about that. In Colorado, I think it was. Collapse is coming on countless fronts, both energy and ecological. Welcome to Worldwide Weather Warfare. Welcome to Geoengineering. So, Global Alert News, episode 562. And that one's available as of yesterday. So, yeah, that's on geoengineeringwatch.org. And then scheduled weather coming up, May 23rd through 27th. Looks a bit like this. This is the heat. Looks like the heat has sort of expanded out in all directions at this point. It's mostly just going to be hot everywhere except for near normal in Texas. A little spot there in Texas and I guess a little bit in Washington State and Alaska as well. But looking at that and then comparing that to this on Climate Reanalyzer, you will see that it's a very similar map on this one, 7 to 10 days out, starting May 23rd. Texas is a bit cooler, but it's going to be warmer everywhere else, pretty much. 7 degrees above normal in Vegas, 9 degrees above normal in Utah, 11 and 12 degrees above normal in the Dakotas, 3 degrees above normal where I am. But for the most part, it's going to be warm everywhere, starting around the 23rd of May. Going backwards from there, May 20th, it's still going to be a bit cooler as of May 20th. Today's the 18th. 2 degrees above normal where I am. And out west, it's a bit above normal, but everywhere else it's cooler because they've done a chemical cool down, I guess, to some degree. Here it was before that. This was as of Sunday, yesterday, or earlier today. May 17th, cooler out west and then warm back east. And then very warm in like New York, Pennsylvania, 14 degrees above normal. Wow. So that's where we are right now, starting basically from now until the 20th. 20th looks like this, and then 23rd looks like this. So that's the scheduled weather coming up for the next few days. All right. And then let's see. We already covered, I guess, the other tabs that I had open. Let me check my notes. I think that was it for tonight as far as what I had discovered that I wanted to run by you guys. Yeah, now what I wanted to mention again was, as I said at the beginning of the show tonight, I did not have time to really prep for this show based on family stuff going on all afternoon and evening today. However, I will post some things that I didn't discuss tonight, some article links that I feel are important. I will put those in the Substack post. So we'll have the normal ones that I talk about tonight, plus there'll be some others, some bonus articles in the Substack post. So please make sure that you are on that list. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me pop that banner onto the screen so you can see it. There it is, right there. No, that's Subscribe Star. Hold on, that's not it. It's this one. Substack. diamonddisc.substack.com, but you can get to it from the QR code right up there. That QR code will get you there, but you can go to Substack that way. And yeah, make sure you're on that list because I wouldn't want you to miss anything important. And yeah, we'll do this again next week. I hate to cut it too short, but we're running kind of long tonight, believe it or not. Considering the fact that I was not prepared whatsoever for tonight, I'm sort of surprised that we're running long, but we are. So yeah, let me just do a quick breeze through the comments here to make sure I didn't miss anything too imperative. I don't want to leave you guys hanging here. Bobby Ricky says, Charles fits very few of the character traits of the Antichrist. Trump fits them all. Yes, well, Charles is the one, though, that has well, that may be true on its surface. It's actually not true when you look deeper into it. Charles does have all the symbology, and he does have the bloodline. And he does have the fact that his title and name, Charles Prince of Wales, works perfectly and comes out to 666. When you do the gematria, that adds up. I don't have the graphic tonight, but I will bring that next time. The gematria, when added up correctly for Charles Prince of Wales or Prince Charles of Wales, adds up perfectly to 666, not only in English, but also in Hebrew. And that is statistically impossible for anyone else. Trump does not have that. He does not have the symbology, and he does not have the bloodline. So based on those things alone, I would say that you're incorrect about that. However, you're entitled to your own opinion. We shall see. We shall see. Now, don't get me wrong. Trump is not a good dude from what I understand at this point. And he is helping to bring the Antichrist system into its full fruition. Absolutely. But is he the guy? I don't think it's really debatable. I don't think it's possible that he's the guy. But we will see, won't we? I think we will all find out very soon. All right, let's see here. What else is going on? Why no Rumble tonight, Doug? Turtle, it should be rolling. It is. Yeah, it is rolling. Rumble is there. Not sure why you couldn't access it, but it is there. So just be aware of that. Got some new commenters here tonight, so that's good. Betty says, Night, Diamond family, and Doug, much love. Be well, be safe. May your days be amazing, kind, and fruitful. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Miss Betty. Appreciate that very much. And yes, God bless you guys, and hope you guys have a great week this week. I promise I will come more prepared next time, but again, we had graduation celebration all day. Seemed like all day. It's been ongoing for a while. Off and on, different things with my daughter the last few days. But today in particular, it was a full day. But it was a good day. It was good. Everything went off fine. And she's officially a high school graduate, so that's a plus. We will see what the next phase is in her life, and I guess really in all of our lives, because who knows where we're headed. It seems to be a little cloudy, and yet I think the Lord Jesus is clearing up some of that cloudiness as we go each and every day. So praise God for that. The next Diamond Report Live will be the 24th of May, which is next Sunday, and that will also be 9 p.m. start time, 9 p.m. Central. And in the meantime, I'll try and get the Rumble chat integrated into our screen burn-in that's over there. And hopefully we'll be able to get that working. But it's possible there's still kind of a bug or something going on with that. I'm not exactly sure, but I didn't have time to mess with it this week. Anyways, thank you guys on Rumble watching. I certainly appreciate that. Thank you guys on Facebook who are watching. Thank you guys on YouTube who are watching. And Kick. Apparently there were some Kick folks tonight, so that's good. And we were also on Telegram, I think, although I can't really confirm that because I started so last second. But anyways, yes, thank you guys, and really appreciate your being here and hanging out with me for 3 hours plus tonight. And we'll do it again next week. And hope you guys have a blessed week this week. And remember to keep Jesus front and center in your life, and keep your family close as well. We just don't know what's coming down the road, but Jesus does. He's already there. So blessings to you all. Hope you have a really wonderful rest of your week this week, and just stay safe. Love you guys. Talk to you again real soon.